Game begin.
So my guess is we have about 2 hours, and then the Italian Nationals top 8 is going to happen, and BK is going to comment. So that's pretty cool. So
Italian Nationals Premodern?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a Euro Nationals every weekend these days. Like every weekend.
Okay, just start. Are we recording now?
Yeah. I've made a habit of just hitting record as soon as you join the call, because the pre-pod banter is what everybody wants.
People love.
Maybe we'll make a exclusive Patreon, and the Patreon the patrons would get 5 minutes of pre-pod talk as exclusive content.
I have a bad history with that, which we won't talk about on camera.
Gosh, I can only imagine. What are we this week? I'm so distracted because Grotog is playing a win-in right now.
Italian Nationals?
Yeah. I'm just like,
you don't want to record, you just want to watch.
I just want to watch Grotog.
I have to run. I didn't.
No. It's all good. No. Let's.
I worked yesterday. I'm working today. It's
that's horrible.
Man, having a job.
No. Let's pod. Grotog is up a game, so I'm just hoping that the game advantage is going to be good enough.
Is it your list, or is it a list that's good?
It's undetermined. I literally just tuned in because I was like, oh, Italian Nationals, and then I was like, oh, Grotog playing a
meddling major play. Like, oh, maybe this is a good day.
No, I just tuned in.
Ranger.
I tuned in, and just one of the commentators, they were looking at an Enchantress list because they're playing against Enchantress, and one of the commentators is just like, Grotog. And I'm like, Grotog? I'm like, in this economy? Surely. Surely not. And yet, here we are.
It used to be like, he owns 4 Mox Diamonds, and the best thing that he can do is summon a Weathered Wayfarer with them. Like, it's just... It's one of those. So, okay, let's do this. On Non-Idiots... Well, originally, you just published this in our secret...
No, I posted it everywhere. So the first place...
Originally, it was published in our close friends Discord.
No, I actually put it in secret Discord after putting it in... big Discord, and the reason was because
I get like sloppy seconds.
Yeah, nobody. Well, because you had to you reacted. Oh, okay. So let me rewind. Anyways, you're listening to Spy Colony 22 with
I don't know about you.
Oh man, I am feeling 22. Jesus Christ.
She was 21 when she wrote that, so that was some BS.
Well, artistic license. She turns 22 and is like, holy crap, this feels nothing like what I expected. Well, I'm here with Feeling 22, Michael J. Flores, and I'm your host.
My bones started creaking when I was 20. The day I turned 20, I rolled out of bed.
It's probably because you're hunched over too many card game tables.
What year is this? I was already a professional Magic player at that age.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Your back was not enjoying it. I will say, Grotog has cast 3 Quirion Dryades. The first 2 got plowed. The third one stuck. Michael J, guess the power toughness.
2/2.
4/4. This game is over. There's no Enchantress in play. He's facing down a Karmic Justice
versus Enchantress.
Yeah, they're a Psychotog.
One of those things where he wheels the old benefactress up the stairs. He's like the heir to this manor in the English countryside. He's wheeling her up the stairs. He's just gonna get there to top of the stairs. He's like, oh, did this wheelchair go plummeting down the stairs? Will I inherit the manor? No, something's gonna happen, right? He's gonna wheel her up the stairs, then he's gonna slip on a banana peel. he's gonna go plummeting down the stairs, and she's gonna laugh all the way to tomorrow's newspaper. And you have to get a new heir.
Let me tell you about what I see on screen.
The Enchantress.
There is a presence of the... We're definitely going to talk about Enchantress today. There is a presence of the Master playmat. Shout out Landy Ho. On the side of the Enchantress. Enchantress has on the battlefield They've drawn, at least from what I can see, they've drawn 4 of their sideboard cards, including 1 Xantid Swarm, 1 Karmic Justice, and 2 Swords to Plowshares. Grotog on the battlefield with a lethal Psychotog and a 6/6 Quirion Dryad. This is music to my ears.
There's no Enchantresses.
There's no Enchantress on the battlefield, which
and
is
Grotog's up.
Grotog is in. Grotog live from Spike Colony 22. Grotog has top 8'd a national championship. I never thought I'd see the day. This is so good. I'm so happy right now.
If Rich Shea were the ancient heiress that had been pushed down the stairs in order to, get her fortune, he would be rolling in his grave.
Yeah, he would.
If Rich Shea were in fact that speculative, non-existent, I guess pre-modern heiress that the Grotog player wheeled up the stairs.
I need to know more about like kicking grandma down the stairs. Like, why did that become such come to the forefront of like one of your that's a top 5 Michael J analogy.
Okay, so when I was in world history in the year like 1990, 1991, I had this amazing history teacher who was very entertaining. He was like a sports.
We all had one.
Yeah, he was a sportscaster as his other job, right? But so he I think he sportscasted Indians games. Oh, I guess they're the Cleveland Guardians now, but I think he sportscasted Indians games back then. It was incredibly entertaining, and he was just really funny and everything. And the one of the analogies he used was when we were talking about the Spanish-American War in world history, is just look. Was kind of a war between 2 countries, but Spain was this ancient empire, right, that they had colonized 3/4 of the world or whatever. But at the point that they had rumbled with the U.S., they were basically a grandma at the top of the stairs. The U.S. is they're like, yeah, I guess you're an empire, sure, whatever. And then at the end of that, we got the Philippines and half the freaking other side of the planet, which, I, as someone who was born in the Philippines and grew up in the United States, whose mother is still presently a Filipino diplomat, did not know that the Philippines was America. I didn't realize that on the day of Pearl Harbor that, the Japanese had attacked the Philippines the same day. And they had legal equivalency, Hawaii and the Philippines at the time. And it's weird to me because I was born in the Philippines and, I was educated in American schools, and we never experienced the gravity that was like an invasion of an American colony. I don't know what word you want to use. All these words that people use,
territory,
are just made up, right? They actually, it's pretty funny. They literally all these words are just made up, and they all mean the same thing, and they're all essentially colonies. But at the time, you would think about Hawaii isn't that's America. That's a state now. At the time, it wasn't a state. It was legal equivalent to Alaska and Guam and the Philippines. But anyway, long story short, yes. Mr. Corrigan.
Shout out to Mr. Corrigan, who is stuck in analogy with Michael J for upwards of 30 plus years. So
yeah. I use that one a lot. And I guess it's actually apropos. Because grandma got pushed down the stairs, but then we could talk about pre-modern at some point.
Yeah,
I know people don't care.
We did just talk about pre-modern. Grotog is a top 8 deck. I am moving it straight to the top of tier 7 in my tier list.
I almost just ran a spit take. We are covered in sweaters today.
Yeah, it's sweater season.
Covered in sweaters.
Okay, so before our pre-modern tier list, let's talk Thanksgiving food tier list. Quick hits. Let's go 2 foods per category, tier S through C. Tier S. Yeah, what's in your S tier?
My mom made, we still have more. I'm gonna eat some of today. My mom made these giant ass ribeye, giant ass ribeye steaks. I ate one yesterday and I gained 0.2 pounds even though I didn't eat anything else. So think about that. I wasn't burning any carbohydrates. How big the steak must have been. So I had some of those, maybe 2 of those or something on Thanksgiving. But when I was growing up, I refused to eat turkey. So my mom would make a Delmonico roast. And other people would eat turkey or ham, but I'm just I don't eat turkey. Turkey's mid. And I'd made that decision when I was in high school. So she would she made me you know, the equivalent of a ribeye or like a ribeye roast or whatever. So that's my S tier protein for Thanksgiving. F all the hams, F all the turkeys.
Yeah, my S tier consists of stuffing, which my uncle had a had ingredient stuffing. My uncle's white, by the way, so his grandma, who celebrated Thanksgiving, had a secret, which was literally just box stuffing recipe, and then you just add applesauce at the end, and that stuff was the literal best. I've since moved on to making my stuffing from scratch,
like stovetop stuffing.
Yep.
Yeah. In the bird or just like in a pan?
I've never had the bird stuffed, so yeah, just
really,
yeah.
I mean, even though you know how I feel about turkey, in the bird stuffing is.
Yeah, so I mean, just because it absorbs, obviously because it absorbs all the fat. So it's possible that, well, so I was very young, so I didn't know my uncle's process. So he might have stuffed the bird and then just taken the stuffing out or whatever. Yeah. Because he didn't serve the whole, he carved the bird. He wouldn't serve it whole. So my family would do Peking turkey. So we would put put the turkey meat in ball buns with hoisin and scallions, and
that sounds. Did you eat it with cucumbers of any side?
I don't know if we did like cucumber or pickle cucumber.
I'm horrified by cucumbers. It's like one of the two foods I'm.
You're just like a cat.
My sister and I don't know what's wrong with us. Like if I eat like a piece of sushi with cucumber in it, I gag.
What about but pickles?
I don't eat pickles.
Okay.
I don't like pickles. My sister drinks like pickle derivatives, or like eats pickle derivatives, like pickle flavored French fries,
vinegar. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not into any of that stuff. But like just a cucumber, like I literally will gag, and like my sister will also gag. They're the only two people on earth that we've ever like met who are like this. And I'll drink like a green juice that is cucumber.
Yeah, it'll blend it in, but we can't. But it's a raw.
I still won't like it, but like I can taste it. But like people are like, well, what is it about cucumber? And I'm like, it just tastes so clean, and that's a terrible thing to. That's the thing that gets. Oh, it tastes so clean. It's just like
there's just no fat. Yeah, there's no salt. There's no fat. There's no contaminant. Okay. That's my S tier. My other S tier would be non-turkey protein. I will share that. So the last 2 years we had Thanksgiving at 11 Madison Park, famed 3-star Michelin restaurant that went vegan. So it was our Thanksgiving tradition to just be like, okay, let's just go and have these guys, make a great meal. We don't have to cook. We don't have to clean. It's great. But we had plenty of Thanksgiving orphans this year, so we had to host. And so we hosted, so I went back into cooking. So this year I cooked rack of lamb, and I cooked a roast chicken. The thermocoupler was out on our oven, so I roasted the chicken in a toaster oven. I used Salmon Nosrat's buttermilk brined roasted chicken recipe, which is just one of the best recipes, just perfect. And a great fundamental recipe for those who just want to understand why food tastes good. So love that. But
can you just post that in the show notes?
Yeah. Oh, it's it's very easy to look up. It's just Salmon Nosrat, salt, acid, fat, heat. It's her flagship recipe for that book.
Wait, so it's buttermilk brined chicken.
Okay, let's just get into it. 3 ingredients: buttermilk, salt, chicken, whole chicken, cover with salt, rub it down with salt, rest it. Then toss it in a Ziploc bag, fill that bag up with buttermilk and 2 cups of buttermilk, and I think it's 2 tablespoons of salt dissolved in the buttermilk. So you got to kind of whisk it up, squinch that stuff around the chicken, toss it in the fridge overnight. Take it out, take the buttermilk off, toss in the oven. You start at 400 degrees. There's kind of this whole technique where you want to point the legs of the chicken towards the back left corner of your oven, because that's where it's hottest, to try to balance the heat of the legs and the breast. And then, you do a little bit of, ninja work. You lower the heat of the oven halfway through. You maybe tent it if the skin's cooking faster than the meat of the turkey, or the chicken rather. It comes out, it's just super juicy. The fat just kind of the fat from the buttermilk keeps kind of caramelizes into incredible flavor. The salt, of course, the brining process just makes it so that the chicken is super moist. There's a lot of science behind it. So this recipe I used to adapt to turkey. And so I would make like, you know, I think I could I think I could roast a turkey that would change your mind about turkey. I'm confident that I could, but after 2 years of doing buttermilk roasted turkey, I was just like, I legit just like chicken better than turkey. So I'm just gonna make chicken this year. And
so, the end game about my turkey sitch though is like one of my staple meals now is just I like, you know, I just get like a package of ground meat, right? Like it could be like ground turkey, ground pork. They have like ground pork at Target a lot, right? But I get like ground beef at Trader Joe's or whatever. But I've been getting a lot of ground turkey, and I just like one of my staple meals is just to make the package of that, and then I just eat that for like my one meal a day or whatever. And I like ground turkey more than I like ground beef at this point, not because it tastes better, but because the cleanup is so much less.
Yeah.
So like, because like I need to really like wipe down a lot of pan, you know.
Yeah, the one pan that you own.
Yeah. So, but yeah, ground turkey, there's just like no cleanup. I just like throw it in the sink because there's like not that much fat. And honestly, if you're just eating like a pound of ground meat with like some spices in it, which meat it is, it's like relatively fungible. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, there's a lot less fat content in the turkey. So.
But if you're eating ground beef, for example, like most of that fat stays in the pan. So you know what I'm saying, right? You ladle it back. Most is an interesting utilization of an adjective in this case, but I'm just saying, like, it doesn't matter to me that much. Like ground pork, ground beef, ground turkey is all pretty much a vehicle for the ghost pepper or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So this is actually, I'm glad you said that, because what I did want to add was that my hot take on food is that good food is actually just good sauce and good seasoning, and all foods are just a vehicle for the things that you put on the food. So
that's fundamentally not true. My dad taught me this thing early, and as I've gotten older, I think he was just right. He's just like, the better something tastes, it usually has more fat or more sugar, right? Just generally speaking, the better something tastes. And those are the things that are bad for you. But I think you probably also add salt to that.
Yeah, you know, so fat, sugar, and salt... most of those get delivered by a lot of these things get delivered by your seasoning. So
by carbs.
By carbs, obviously.
So I'll tell you that I was going to just react to the thing you said about call, right? Like if you think about the experience of a hamburger, right? Like
and we love hamburger on Spike Corner.
A smash burger, right? Like there's no comparison between a beef smash burger and a turkey burger. And one of the reasons for that is the beef smash burger, that potato bun becomes a vehicle for fat.
This is my point.
Salt, that tastes fantastic. That bun is a boner extender in the food.
You're not eating hamburger for cow meat. You're eating it for the crust and the sear, for the Maillard reaction. So the transformation of proteins into something that's, that married with salt and a little bit of toasted peppercorn, obviously. So you love all that flavored, and then basted in beef fat. So none of this flavor, I mean, hot take, obviously, I would dial back on this, but it's like, you're not enjoying the beef, you're enjoying everything around the beef. And this same goes for, Thanksgiving, like stuffing is just soaked in fat, and like I made mine with sausage. So it's got a bunch of sausage fat, and it's just like butter. It's soaked up a bunch of chicken stock. It's just made of all these things. Just think about a French fry, right? What is a French fry fundamentally? Like it's
just delicious.
So when you fry a vegetable, and this is the reason why air frying is complete bullshit. When you fry a vegetable, you're replacing all of the water content in that vegetable with fat. So when you deep fry something, all the water evaporates and is replaced by your deep frying fat. So this is why boomers like you talk about the McDonald's French fry from the 90s, because they used to fry it in tallow, and that tallow, and that beef fat was replacing the water. So you're eating a fatty French fry. Now let's take that one step further. What do you do with French fry? You cover it in salt and you dip it in ketchup.
Why are you saying that air frying was? I didn't remember what.
So air frying is just evaporating the water, but it's not replacing that water with fat.
but it tastes good still.
It doesn't taste good.
Crispy food.
No, it doesn't taste good. You're lying to yourself if you think it tastes as good as a deep fry.
Okay, I don't know what as good is. I'm also not fat phobic in terms of the food that I consume.
Yeah.
I'm carbs phobic.
Yeah, you're carb phobic.
So I will eat however much fat you put in front of me. And I'm not afraid of it.
So, air frying is just convection. An air fryer is just a convection oven.
It's just the skin.
But two, so the transformation of the surface and the toasting of the herbs and spices that you have on the exterior of food, it's really, it's good. Makes your food taste better, right? But the reason, like, you love fried chicken. The Spy Colony is a huge fan.
Yeah,
of
I pretend
chicken.
that there's no carbs in fried chicken. Just look past it. Just
you
look
can't.
By. Nothing to see here.
An air fried piece of fried chicken is just. It's an embarrassing facsimile for a deep fried piece of fried chicken.
I'm not gonna whole roast a chicken, right?
Yeah.
But could I get like chicken pieces?
Yeah.
That are, like, covered in skin or whatever, and do that buttermilk technique that you said?
Just break it. You can break it down and just brine in buttermilk. So
yeah,
the fun.
I'm gonna go do that. I'm not gonna do it today. My mommy's still here for a few days. She's gonna cook me steaks.
Okay, so on that topic, the number one lesson from salt, fat, acid, heat is that if you salt your protein overnight, like most proteins, not ground beef, because ground beef has such a high surface area, so you salt ground beef right before cooking, but all other proteins you want to salt 40 minutes or greater, and preferably overnight, and that's ideal. This is science. Don't come at me. I have a feeling this take is hotter than the tier list takes that are about to drop.
Oh no, your tier list is redonkadonk. I was gonna respond to it in one of the forums that you put in, and
you're just like, the message was getting too long.
But I was just like, you know what? Let's get paid, MFers.
Yeah, paid by nothing. Yeah, paid at nothing.
We're wondering, this podcast is currently free and not monetized.
Hold on. You agree with this tier. The only thing you disagree with on this tier list, you agree with everything.
We're just gonna have to find out,
except for line
when
one.
we go through the tiers.
All right, line one.
Okay, your number one deck is maybe a tier 3 deck. So all right, maybe. Do you know what a tier is? I don't think people know what a tier is.
No, this is my vibe. This is literally my vibe, and the reason is pretty simple. So coming in at the very top of my tier 1 on the tier list is none other than Oath Paluche, and this is
Selesnya Oath Paluche.
This is the hottest. This is a blazing hot take. I know it's a hot take, and it's a vibe take. It's based on my personal experience. It's based on my thinking about decks that I want to play.
The meetup on Tuesday?
I'll see.
I'll battle you.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to give me the Oath Paluche cards because I'm missing, Cataclysm or whatever. I have the whole
deck put together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm gonna trim the diamonds.
Or at $1,000 tournament last.
I know, exactly. Tier 1 deck.
It sucks. All I did the whole day was complain about how bad Oath.
Literally, if you just had a snack, if you had a snack while playing, you probably would have went undefeated. You probably would have beat Burn. Deck loses to Burn.
I lost in the top 8 of the last 2 modern RCQs I played in, but I did devour a pound of protein before leaving my house in both cases.
Yes, thank you.
And in one of them, I ate a pound of chicharron, which was next door. They had a Dominican bakery or something. I'm gonna go and buy this pound of chicharron.
So let me talk about why I think Oath Paluche is tier 1, and I think there's there's a bunch of. I mean, I'll caveat this with one. A lot of people took Oath Paluche to Euro Championships, so. One of the things that I anecdotally noticed was that a good portion of the pre-modern metagame, not a huge portion, but quite often, somebody takes Francisco Pavluchek's friend of the podcast, progenitor of Oath Paluche and Dreadnought Paluche.
Argent Paluche.
Argent not Paluche.
Argent 12
takes it.
Argent also means silver, which is interesting, right?
Oh yeah, that is interesting.
It means silver, so
because it does keep on getting second place behind Sam Black in Madison, Wisconsin.
Also at LobsterCon.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, Arjun.
Like, it's also, if you think about it, it's the bridesmaid, right? You know, it's like something.
It's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. That's a good point.
Yeah, blue and white.
Shout out Mike Harris, the only person who's broken the silver collector curse of Dreadnought by winning the monthly way back in July with Blue White Dreadnought.
Dave Kaplan wins every online tournament he enters with this deck.
Yeah, but nobody gives a nobody cares about that.
Everyone, you're just like, oh, who won this? Dave Kaplan, obviously.
So, God, did I say it last podcast? I'm like, these guys know they're gonna have to play him in these champs. It's like, why would you bring a deck that loses to Blue White Dreadnought? Just like,
it is my joy to just watch when, you know, Oath Peluche, Argent Peluche, Peluche 1212, his YouTube channel updates. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell Mengu. Don't tell Covert Go Blue. But Fran is my favorite stream-a-deemer now. I love it. I just get so happy every time he puts content up. I mean, unless it's like some legacy Amulet Titan, in which case I won't watch one, right?
That's like, easy skip. Yeah.
That's nonsense. But like all 75% of the rest of his stuff is worth watching. And so he puts that up. And then, like, he just keeps losing to Dave Kaplan playing Argent Knot.
Well,
like,
for
Dave
what it's
Kaplan
worth,
playing my deck, probably gonna lose.
For what it's worth, or if the time he lost, he was playing my deck, Replenish, and of course with the Armageddon. So Rich Shea didn't have Armageddons with me, which is a huge relief. But with the Armageddon out of Blue White Dreadnought, the matchup has become very close to unwinnable because you can't play a long game, you can't play a short game, you can't play any kind of game. Anyways,
that was actually the genesis of inevitability. I didn't have a word for it yet, right? Zvi actually invented the word inevitability when he wrote Who's the Beatdown 2 Multitasking. But I had this concept, which was just like, sometimes the deck is both the beatdown and the control, and the other deck has no role. And that, like, what you have to do is like figure out a role that you can go into because you don't have a fundamental role. So like a good example would be Sly against Suicide Black. Like, Sly's good at everything, Suicide Black is literally bad at everything, right? So the, you know, what people like Dave Price would do when they were on the Suicide Black side was just like so heavily sideboard in order to become essentially a board control deck, right? Like bring in cards like Masticore and Spinning Darkness, become a removal deck, and the life still wasn't great for them, right? Necessarily, but they could at least have a role.
Yeah, he had an angle.
Look at it like if you look at just, you know, Carnophage and Sarcomancy against Curse Scroll and Grim Lavamancer, like they're literally just geared to it. Like they fundamentally gear to you, right? Just like Grim Lavamancer, is it dead? No, I don't play removal in my main deck. Nice hatred, you know, like it's one of those. So they just fundamentally gear to you, but they can just gear one you. They're just like, oh, well, I have Ball Lightning and Fire Blast. I wonder how this is going to go. Sarcomancy.deck. You know, they have all the gears. All the gears. The gears come preloaded when they open their slide deck out of the box. Just like, oh, what is this? Vaporware? No, that's preloaded gears, right? So they got all that stuff. So you know, they're basically, the control is as gear 2. They're basically the beatdown as gear 1. As a result, they have gear 3 inevitability just locked in. It's just right there. So the other deck has to play a transformational strategy. They can't win. So anyway,
yeah, Blue White Dreadnought is quite favored into Replenish thanks to Armageddons, but you know, don't get too comfortable. I'd probably still beat you on the Replenish side. Just saying, unless you're Rich Shea or Dave Kaplan for that matter.
Dan and I tested that matchup a lot for Sacred Torch, and he thought Replenish was unplayable because we could just never win a game from the Replenish side.
Well, the reason why it's really good,
sideboard games were worse.
Well, so people refuse to play Blue White Dreadnought though, and Replenish feasts on other Dreadnought variants. So I
bet I could handle you with Blue Red Dreadnought.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. But I'm Exo. I'm just gonna abeyance you, and you're just gonna do nothing about it, man. Because you're gonna be looking at your two mountains and an island, just being like, well, I wish I could pick up this island with my gush, but I can't.
Impressive that you think my Lotus Petal that's been sitting there since turn 1 was an island, but yeah.
All right.
I'm debating whether or not I'm gonna daze this abeyance with the Lotus Petal.
Yeah.
But sure. Sure.
So
yeah.
Lotus Pedal 2 Mountain.
For life.
I'm XO versus non-Blue White Dreadnought with Replenish. I beat Blue Red recently in League play. I beat Mono Blue in the Fall Brawl. Just stop playing not Blue White Dreadnought. Grats to David Raska. Great run with the Fall Brawl win. Chomping on the Hermit Febs with his Mishra's Factory, Flash of Insight.
So that means Mono Blue is the Dreadnought to beat now, right?
Well, Mono Blue, Mono Blue found the gold, but that's still, I'm calling it even with Mike Harris, and then there's plenty of results on Blue White, thanks to David Kaplan. So, anyways.
David Kaplan is all the Blue White wins.
Anyways, so my initial point.
Straight up one man.
My initial point.
David Kaplan is now a Magic coach.
I saw that, yeah. Go find him on social media. He will coach you on how to be a better player. I mean, Mike and I coach you. Yeah, Mike and I coach you every week for free. So, but if you got money to spare.
Free forever, buddy.
Yeah,
Or the words of Lanny Huang, the coaching is good, but there's no way I would pay the hourly.
Well, oh God. So I remember I was like thinking about this thing, and the reason isn't like, it's not you, it's not hi you, it's the problem, it's you. It's the problem is that you cannot communicate enough knowledge in an hour to make it worth like $100. It's really hard to give somebody $100 worth of knowledge in 1 hour. It's just really hard, especially with Magic, because like it would take me an hour.
$200 worth.
Yeah, it would take me an hour.
$250 worth.
It would take me an hour to like figure out what your problem is. Like, okay, so here's what I would do. This would be my system. I would be like, first, I need you to send me like a lot of tape for me to watch to just like figure out what your tendencies are. This is going to go into the second topic, just like to try to understand your style, because I'm coming around. We used to just be a team. All there is leverage and force, and
no, that's what team we are.
And I realized that I am now team style. I am now team,
Style is just an excuse for people who are bad at leverage and force.
Long hair, slick back, white t-shirt, never goes out of style.
Yes, just punch me straight in the eardrums. Fine. No. But style is just an excuse for people who are bad at leverage and force.
Oh man, dude, should we like talk about this now before we've even gotten down one note of tier list?
We haven't even gotten
we haven't even gotten through deck 1.
0.25 deck
into the tier list. Okay. This is okay. Well, what do you think about this? So one of the things that one of my favorite analogies. So name your favorite guitarist. Who's your favorite guitarist of all time?
Taylor Swift.
Jesus Christ. You don't know, do you like rock and roll music?
Sure.
Okay, what's your favorite rock band of all time?
What counts as a rock band?
A guitar, bass, and drums band. Just name one.
The Beatles.
Okay, George Harrison. Let's go with George Harrison. So I'm horrible for this analogy. My favorite guitarist of all time is Jack White. Take Jack
White. I was thinking about that mostly because of like that movie that Jack White
it might get loud. Yeah.
Obsession of just doing nothing but guitaring since he was a teenager.
Yeah. So
I was actually thinking about Jack White. He's also a weirdo.
Well, he's quite strange. So he's my favorite guitarist. We'll just use a Might Get Loud as a good example. So like, let's take a guitarist like Jack White. Let's take a guitarist like The Edge, right? The Edge and Jack White have different styles. And why do they have different styles? It's like, okay, well, The Edge uses a lot of pedals. His whole thing is this giant pedal board. He puts his guitar through a lot of effects, and the way he likes to play guitar is to like play this like heavily influenced heavily effects driven kind of style. Jack White is like on the opposite end of the spectrum. He doesn't put his guitar tone through very much effects. He doesn't really do anything crazy, and in fact he tries to make playing guitar as difficult as possible for himself, to just kind of create this unnecessary friction when he plays. So he likes he likes cheap guitars. He likes this horrible tone. And then he does like these weird things, like he physically makes it hard for him when he's on stage. So a lot of guitar players, and he talked about this, I think, in the doc, a lot of guitar players keep their spare guitar picks very close at hand. So if they drop a guitar pick, they just grab another one off their mic stand or whatever. Jack White puts it 10 feet across the stage. So if he drops his guitar pick, he has to like walk across the stage and pick up a new one. And he used to play, and he probably still does to a certain extent. He used to play with no set list. So he would just do all the stuff. Anyways,
you just
pick the song. Yeah,
on the button.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So Jack White and The Edge, totally different styles, but. Okay, what would happen if you just took both guitar players' setups? You just switched places. What would happen? Would Jack White just pick up the Edge's pedals and his guitars, his rig, and would he play? Would you be able to? Would he play like the Edge?
No, but okay, here's the thing. Okay, like I've been playing with AI image creation a lot recently for fun, right? And so a lot of the things I'll do is just like I'll have the AI make me the same image, but sometimes I'll ask it to make it in the style of a Saturday morning cartoon, or sometimes I'll ask it to make it in the style of a Sunday comic strip. Other times I'll ask it to make it the style of an Albrecht Dürer woodcut, right? And it can visually communicate those things. And any two-dimensional rendition of a three-dimensional object or something that doesn't exist in the real world, right, is by definition stylized, right? But then we overlay a style, like make this like a Saturday morning cartoon, make this like a Sunday comic strip, make this like an Albrecht Dürer woodcut, make this in the style of Disney Pixar. Okay, you're asking it to queer something that doesn't exist in the real world and recombine it in a way that we can experience it in a visual figurative language. When you look at something like this, I think it's more analogous to say like how is a deck designed rather than how a deck is played.
Well, let me actually.
And like so what I'm saying is like one of them, the Edge is gonna finish a. You know what a better example is? Do you know anything about comic book creation? Like Kevin Nolan is a really famous comic book illustrator. Sometimes he inks, right? So like Kevin Nolan, one of his strengths is he can erase whatever style was that the penciler drew, and it looks like a Kevin Nolan image at the end of it, right? Which is like bad if you were like a particular stylistic penciler putting pencils down, but it looks great because Kevin Nolan is an amazing finisher, right? But like, I can tell the difference if Jim Lee inked himself or if Scott Williams inked Jim Lee, right? But that's art. Right, like
So this is
like all of this stuff that makes art worth experiencing is because there's human imperfection to it, and that those are the things we appreciate. But that's like the uncanny valley, right? Like you can make an AI, like I'm going to make the most beautiful AI girlfriend or whatever, and then you look at her and she's just like, well, this is weird. I don't want to look at this. Like a real person has flaws, imperfections, blemishes, etc. Those are the things that make them interesting. And like perfect execution on a guitar by the notes is not what makes either of these people interesting. But I have a better answer, my original answer, and then I'll let you come back. I think I'm going to say Dave Grohl. And the reason I'm going to say Dave Grohl is I once read some of this. I thought this was hilarious. As I was just like, I wish that Kurt Cobain had lasted 4 more years, right? And in response, this other person was just like, what about Kurt Cobain doesn't die at all? She's like, ugh. And then no Foo Fighters? that was the best. I'm gonna vote Dave Grohl on the basis of reading that once, which is fantastic. But my actual answer is Ani DeFranco, who is not a noted guitar player, but I've seen her live probably more than anybody else. And like, I think just like her screwing up, like while she's just killing it on stage in a small venues. I've seen her in small venues. I've seen her in large venues. Just like killing it and screwing up on stage is the experience of live music. And you don't go to live music in order to hear the most polished radio version of the song. You hear it to hear, you hear it you attend it for broken guitar picks or for like string slinging or for somebody swearing or for them to tell the audience to simmer down because this is my performance. You're there to listen, not sing.
Or banter, which is basically how podcasts were born. We just took all the stage banter and was like, let's just do this for 2 hours.
answer of my head, Dave Grohl. B, answer of my heart, Ani DeFranco. C, tell me all of the things that you reacted to. And we are still 0.25 decks into the tier list.
That's all right. The rest after deck 1, the tier list is academic. But so I want to talk about my style. All right. And so the way I wanted to bring it back was just like, okay, you give Jack White the Edge's guitar, he's still not going to play like the Edge, right? So if you give Rich Shea the blue-white dreadnought deck, he's not going to play it like Francisco Polacek. Now,
apparently he plays it way better than any of us.
You want to? Well, no, he scrubbed the Fall Brawl with the deck, and he was actually so frustrated scrubbing the Fall Brawl that he took to Discord and he was just like, well, now that Mono Blue Dreadnought won the Fall Brawl, are we reconsidering how good Blue White Dreadnought is? And I was like, why would we reconsider? Like, the Fall Brawl is just one data point, and you have all these other data points. You got Mike Harris, you got Dave Kaplan, Sacred Torch, Misty. Like, Blue White Dreadnought is like, a statistically good deck in addition to being a good deck, based on the experience of experts. And I was like, and Rich was just like, oh, well, I just haven't had good results recently. I'm like, what results have you not had recently? You went 4-0 in your Blue White Dreadnought games in the PSS. And he's like, I guess you're right about that. But he's like, didn't want to scrub the Fall Brawl. And so Rich Shea, of course, has probably like an 80 to 90% expected win rate in Premodern. So I can understand his frustration when he doesn't.
Yeah, it's the same as me. Like, what is my top 4 rate in meetups? Yeah. Right? Like, close to 100%.
Well, first of all, the only acceptable outcome of a meetup is victory. That's just like baseline. Okay,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. What is my first place win rate at meetups? And there's good players in the meetups. I play against you, Dave Kaplan, etc., etc. There's good play. There's Pro Tour champions at every meetup. Okay, actual Pro Tour winners, not just like, oh.
Actually, you've never won a meetup where a Pro Tour champion was present.
That's not true.
That's so true. OSIP won. OSIP won back to back. OSIP won back to back, and then Tom beat you last time.
Yeah. I mean, Zvi also attended recently. So anyway, I guess I've never won one that a Pro Tour champion has been present at. But my win rate of actually winning,
it's like between 20 and 30%, which is crazy.
Colonizing the Pro Tour champion wing into the thing was like over 50%. I just was first place most.
That's not over 50, but it's close.
It's fine. It's close to 50%, right?
Way more than you would expect. Yeah.
Yeah, so then, I was just like, my lifetime at $1,000 tournaments at Bearded is 100% to top 4. So it was life-shattering for me that I missed top 8 at Sacred Torch.
Yeah.
I mean, I was mad that day.
Yeah, but that was also like, the feeding issue.
Then I ate fried chicken.
There you're fine. Okay, so
bring it back to the original top.
So we're talking about style. Rich Shea has a different style. He plays blue. I mean, granted, Alvaro doesn't play Blue White Dreadnought, but Alvaro's like watching him play. It's just like, what is he doing? What is he doing? We watched him play, right? He played against me. He's like hand sizing a meddling mage. We're like, what is happening right now? Nobody else would hand size a meddling mage. Now let's.
Of course, at the point that he hand sized the meddling mage, it's obvious he's going to win the game. He was playing 4-dimensional chess.
Yeah. So quick aside, this definitely gets me because we talk about accuracy, and accuracy is something we get from chess. So now that we have machines that can tell us what the best chess move is, we can evaluate people's chess games on how accurate they play. And yet, despite the fact that a machine can just tell you what the best play is at all the time, chess players have style. Like, it's just noted, like different chess players have different style.
Yeah, but that's because some people, there's two things there. One of them is some people are more like they're fundamentally more inclined to risk. And there's other people who they're like, well, if I play a certain way, this person is going to react a certain way, and they're going to fumble X moves into the future, which a chess machine isn't necessarily going to know that thing, right? Like, I just remember like Fischer playing a knight up the knight up the right, instead of taking to the center. It's just like, oh, when Fischer did this, he's just like, we're not going to draw this game. Like taking his knight up the right was just like, this is just going to result in a
right. All right. So
non-draw.
So let's
right?
Let's go ahead and talk about another thing that we noticed that that you called out was watching a Reed Duke video in which Reed Duke gets Cabal therapied, and
that was just a mistake.
It is. It would just be a blunder, right? But it's a blunder that comes from the style that he has. He's actually doing exactly what you said, right? He's making a decision based on what he thinks his opponent's going to do and not what's the most accurate play. So the quick background is Reed Duke gets Cabal therapy. He can force the Cabal therapy.
Up to this point, right? So to give you background, I was watching an Oath Peluche video, right? The next video queued up on YouTube was a Reed Duke Legacy video, which I greatly enjoyed. And Lanny and I had been talking about Reed Duke's style recently. I think we talked about it on the podcast even about bloodthirstiness. And in our personal commerce with one another, I will often be like, I'm not sure if I was appropriately bloodthirsty, not bloodthirsty enough. I have to ask Lanny if I should have been more bloodthirsty in this spot. What does bloodthirsty even mean? Most recently, I think I drew into top 8 of Modern RCQ last week and then lost in the top 8 from being on the draw again. My opponent in the last round of the Swiss was a Goblin Charbelcher deck, which I'd never seen before, right? So I was just like, I think it's better for me to guarantee a top 8 spot and play from the bottom than play against a deck I'd never seen before. And I kept going to time every round, or by going to time I mean I would win in like 13 minutes and then leave to get snacks.
Yeah, so you wouldn't scout.
So I never scouted. I just knew from talking to other people that there was this. They're like, oh man, Goblin Charbelcher, he's kicking everybody's butt, right? But I had no idea what was in his deck. But if I had looked at his deck, I probably would have been inclined to play, right? Where he has like a lot of lands that damage himself, and I could have just tunnel visioned a Gear 1 game with Destructive Revelry and probably just guaranteed top spot for
Destructive Revelry doesn't do anything in the matchup.
Well, does it? I believe he has Leyline of Sanctity after sideboarding.
Yeah, but the issue is, all right, so the Goblin Charbelcher deck is a 1-card combo. The card
also, if he could, I think he has to slow play me because of Eidolon of the Great Revel. So like instead of trying to like 7 mana me for the win, I think he does a 2-fold 4 mana, 3 mana way. No, that's the case. Then Destructive Revelry actually gains a lot of context.
The player casts 3 spells. So if they're above 14 life on turn, 3 spells. No, if they're above 6 life. If they're above 6 life, maybe +3 if they need an untapped land, which they don't always need. They're above 3. So let's just give them 10, right? So if they have the 10 life and above on turn 3, you'll lose. And if they're on the play, you can never get them below 10 life on their turn 3. And that's because it's a 1-card combo deck. It's sort of 2-card combo where they can get there with Accelerant plus Recross the Paths. So I'm just saying you would have been extremely unfair.
I believe in myself.
No, I'm saying obviously you should always, how to win a PT, you should always believe in yourself. Like you should just believe that your opponent in game 1 is going to lose the die roll, and then in game 3, when you're back on the play, they're going to mulligan to Oblivion. But it's an extremely risky prospect of trying to run Burn and Dreadnought.
Play, I can get him under 10 on turn 3. Like doesn't seem hard to me.
Right, but then that's like barring. That's like barring them still having like a route to victory that doesn't involve that's barring you having an Eidolon on turn 2. So Eidolon is going to be a 2 mana lava axe,
Deal
basically.
10.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a 2 mana lava axe if you slam it on turn 2, and it's gonna be 8 damage if you get to attack with that on turn 3. So that could be enough. But if you don't have Eidolon in your opening hand, like you said, Gear 1 chooses you, right? If you just have a hand that's burn, it's not going to get there. If you just have a hand that's 1 creature, that's not a Swift Spear.
It's very hard to get there with 1 creature.
Or a Swift Spear that's, but you don't have multiple. Like, what if you draw a hand and you have your Searings in game 1? Then you're in huge trouble, right?
Then I'm like turn 5 Goldfish kill maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're in a lot of trouble if you have too many 2-mana spells, if you don't have enough creatures, if you don't have Eidolon. So these are all fail states for you. And the Charbelcher fail state is like, I didn't draw one of the 4 of that I'm mulliganing for. It's like, okay.
So you're saying it was right for me to draw in the last round?
It was correct for you to draw. You first told us that you thought your opponent was Scam, and we're like, oh, play Scam.
My wires.
But then you're like, oh no, it's Belcher. It's like, no, it's good draw. Okay. Yeah.
So no, I probably would have drawn for Scam also because I was really hungry, so I wanted to stop and get food.
It's important to be bloodthirsty, but it's also important to be food hungry.
No, I was straight up hungry, and they held up the top 8 for me because the lines were long.
Oh, nice.
So, but anyway, long story short, Reed was playing so conservative in this Legacy. It was just like unbelievably conservative. I'm like, I would have just taken a more aggressive route every single turn, you know. And he's just winning, and he's just like, well. Like, it's just this one game he has, like, I want to say a preordained, but it's probably not a preordained, like some one mana a ponder. He has a ponder and a delver on the first turn on the draw, and he's just like, I'm just going to play my volcanic island and say go.
Nice.
In case the opponent has like something for me to hydroblast, right? Like, and then he doesn't even have something to hydroblast. He's just like, well, I'm just not playing anything.
No, it's
he's a
sweet.
delver and a ponder.
Yeah, he's just like, well, the game went another turn. As far as Reed is concerned, if the turn comes back to him, he just gains advantage bar, right?
It was also a bad matchup, right? And he had lost game 1, so I was just like, don't you just get your delver?
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to get you. I'm just going to leave it open. I mean, I'm imagining I'm talking to Reed,
yeah.
Right? But he's just like on my Sony Bravia, right? And so, yeah, so there's that. But then, like, he just saw these lines I just didn't see. And so he's just, like, clocking this guy with a Delver, and there's a Magus of the Moon in play, right? And Reed's just like, well, I can't cast any spells, so I just have to Raw Dog Lightning Bolt. So I'm thinking, okay, like, this is going to be tough to win. Like, even if you're bolting face, you know, you kind of get there. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't a Delver. It was a Dragon's Rage Channeler, which is also a 3 power flyer. So I'm doing the math. I'm like, you kind of have to draw a lot of lightning bolts in order to get here. And then, like, Reed gets the first lightning bolt, and he just bolts the Magus of the Moon, unlocking his hand. I'm like, why didn't I see that?
Okay, that's obviously a Michael J. blunder.
Yeah, but then... Well, no, because I think if I had just been playing myself, I might have thought about that. But he said I just need to draw a lot of lightning bolts, right? Which implied to me that
he was going to send,
and he was just send a face, right? But then later in the game, he's just like. He brainstorms in such a way that he's just like, I'm just going to do this and this. I know these are the cards at the top of my library, to just clear the top of my library with Dragon's Rage Channeler and hope the top of my library wins the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got it during his, upkeep phase. And I'm just like, I just would have drawn the days that I put at the top of my library and crossed my fingers.
I mean, crazy thing about Reed Duke is that when he says, I hope the top of my library wins the game, it's not the top of the library that's going to do the winning. It's Reed, right? Like,
so it was. But it's interesting, like, he was actively, like, clearing the top of his library on upkeep with Dragon's Rage Channeler, that he knew the cards, what they were from a brainstorm. And I was just like, this is, like, really interesting lines of play that I just wouldn't have taken, because, like, I'm like, I think I'm going to win next turn is the thing, and, I'm just going to cross my fingers on this. My opponent's got next to nothing, but I guess that was a try to be more bloodthirsty situation for him. Anyway,
I mean, it's possible.
Lanny's talking about is Reed's hand is 2 Force of Wills, a Delver. He could have played the Delver Secrets, chose not to, and like a Ponder, right? And so what he says out loud is, I'm not going to play any of these cards because I have 2 Force of Wills. So this will, like, prevent me from being able to screw up. I'm not going to play any of these cards, right? So his opponent's about to go off, right? He goes, Cabal Therapy you, right? And I'm like, well, you have to Force of Will with the Delver here, right? Like, that's the play you make. And Reed goes, hey, he's just going to name Force of Will anyway. So he just lets him lets him Cabal Therapy for force. So Reed loses both forces and has an uncastable Ponder and an uncastable Delver of Secrets left. And he's like, I probably should have forced that with the Delver.
Yeah, I mean, that might just be I mean, that's not how you described it in Discord, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you said his hand was like double Bowmaster for something.
There's 5 cards. He has a Bowmaster, a Ponder, a Delver, and 2 Force.
Okay, I see.
But he just let the Cabal Therapy resolve.
Yeah, I mean...
But I don't know, maybe if you let the Cabal Therapy resolve, they just don't name Force there.
Yeah, I mean, one, you take that, or it's just Reed math, right? 2 Force of Will is 2 cards, so... I mean, obviously, it's just different, but... Okay, so I don't want to go too in the weeds on the specific things, but I do want to point out that, like, Reed's a very successful Magic player. Reed clearly has style. You look at Rich's style. Sam Black was on our podcast, and if you watch Sam Black play Limited, he plays a different game of Limited than most people. I started thinking about like what I like to do in my decks the most. And one of the things, we joked about it. We had the podcast titled Lanny Doesn't Understand Control. And it's actually so true, because I am like always trying to play a deck. I'm not always trying to play a deck, but I'm most comfortable in playing a deck that has some form of inertia. So at the very heart of this, my favorite deck is a deck that plays a creature on turn 1. Like,
really?
Yeah, I love Jackal-Pup Ragavan.
Land tax is a creature.
Wild Nicol. Yeah. Because it plays land tax on turn 1, right? So you just win. No, so but and this draws into my larger thing of why I hate Oath of Druids. But
let me describe this to you. Patrick Chapin had this analogy about decks about how much heat a deck has.
Yeah.
Like, is a deck hot or cold, right? And like, does it make the world hotter or colder as it goes on? But I have a different analogy, which is like a vector-based analogy, which is like you take actions, and then depending on what card you play, what direction the game goes, right? So like, to me, a first turn Jackal-Pup or Goblin Lackey creates a vector where you're moving forward, right? So like, I put this down and I'm moving forward. A land tax, you play a land tax and it moves straight up. It doesn't move forward, backwards, sideways. It moves straight up, right? And that like, but an Oath of Druids create a stasis or an Oath of Druids. You play that permanent and it stops all direction, right? Like, everything now stops, right? Like, nobody moves forward, nobody moves up, right? Until you deal with this stasis or this Oath of Druids. Other things like a Siege Gang Commander spreads sideways, right? Like, and then like, the way that you deal with those situations is you have to stop. You're not just stopping a card, you're stopping the direction of the card.
Yeah.
Right. So a Goblin War Chief, much like a Goblin Lackey or a Jackal-Pup, moves forward. But not only does it move forward immediately, everybody now moves forward. So like, so if you are dealing with a Siege Gang Commander creates movement sideways, and in combination with a Goblin War Chief, it also moves forward. And you have to deal with all the directions that your opponent is presenting to you, not just the cards that your opponent is presenting.
Right, or you race them in that same direction.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, that's just.
No, I like that, and the reason why I have so many things to link this up to. One of the simple things to link this up to is the reason why I love a card like Vindicate and I don't like a card like Disenchant, right? So,
oh my god, I hate Vindicate because it costs 3.
I do hate that it costs 3
Disenchant because it costs 2
and is an instant. But one of
why don't you like Vindicate? It's terrible.
I love Vindicate.
I don't know if I own Vindicate. Is that weird?
That is a little weird
card to not own.
That's a weird card.
I probably own it.
They're like $1. So one of the reasons,
Old
like
Border.
Yeah, I mean maybe
I've played
2.
it on a bunch of Pro Tours, so it's weird to me if I don't own it. That's
Anyway,
the thing.
So if you play it's like, well, my favorite thing about a creature, and especially an efficient creature, like especially a 1-mana creature, right? Because there's nothing an opponent can do unless you're playing Modern and they just freaking fury the creature, and then or 2 of your creatures that's super bad. But like, if you play a 1-mana creature, there's nothing your opponent can do to exploit that besides play Oath of Druids. So that's why I hate Oath. Like, if they plow it, you spent 1 mana, they spent 1 mana, and then you get to play another creature, and then whatever. So
I've been hanging out with you a lot for like a year, right?
Yeah.
About a year. I have never seen you play a 1-mana. like a 12/12 that you played on turn 6. I've seen you play a 2-mana creature.
So I've seen
you play a 3-mana creature.
You
played an 8-mana creature.
My signature Modern deck, besides Bring to Light and Miseraborn, is a zoo deck in which it had 12 1-drops on turn 1 between Wild Nikado, Dragon Range Channeler, and Ragavan. And
that's your quote signature Modern deck.
That's like
you were still playing Modern at the point that those cards were printed.
Yeah. I played Modern. I was a regular Modern player. Like Modern is how I would play Limited or Modern, basically. Before I started playing Premodern, last July or whatever, I was just playing Limited or Modern, or I was playing other games. I would just be playing Teamfight Tactics or Valorant or whatever. Anyways, that's one of the decks. And it's not.
I only know what Valorant is because I guess Meebo used to.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Stream that.
So, the reason I built that deck was okay. So here, all the 2-drops were Tarmogoyf, Territorial Kavu, and Scourge of the Skyclave. And basically with that deck, I was just like, okay, well, what's the most played card in Modern? It's Lightning Bolt. I'm like, okay, well, what if my deck only contained creatures that cost 1 mana or 2 mana creatures that didn't die to bolt? Now, of course, Unholy Heat and Solitude and Dress Down, there's like various other punishes, but like, basically I was just like, if I play Tarmogoyf, it just like doesn't die Lightning Bolt, and that rules. And if I play a 1 mana creature that dies to bolt, then I'm still in pretty good shape. And then I had like Tribal Flames, which is super efficient. And I had my own bolts, which was super efficient. Prismatic Ending was like the least efficient card in my deck. But it's like Prismatic Ending is a great card if you play a 1 mana creature, right? So anyways, Premodern kind of is lacking, like one of the things that I love about the Savannah Alliance decks, and I put a horrible deck in our Discord. It might not be horrible, who knows, I haven't played enough, but I was just like, okay, well, what's a powerful way to bring this into Premodern? It's like, well, you can play all 1 mana 2 power creatures, and you can play Wasteland, and you can play a deck that can play a 2 mana, like a 2 power creature, and then Wasteland and another 2 power creature, and then your opponent just like your opponent's going to lose because you've created so much advantage, right? You've created so much tempo. And I like other cards. A 1 mana creature is like a simplest form of this. Are you familiar with the game Settlers of Catan?
I've never played Settlers of Catan, but I've certainly heard of it. Right?
Okay,
so
one of
you could be a Settlers nerd instead of a Magic nerd if you, I don't know,
right,
had less money.
So one of the true. So one of the simplest tips about Settlers is just that Settlers has this sort of like early game stage, and you invest your resources in the early game, and you can invest your resources into building roads, which the game gives you a queue. They give you a reward for longest road. If you have the longest road, you get points. But the best use of your early game resources is to invest them in stuff that produces more resources, right? So this is the same with Magic. It's like if you have an early game, you have early game mana. If you play a 2 power creature on turn 1, you've made a great investment, right? This thing is going to just pay you dividends every single turn. And then Modern Magic is just that times infinity, because now you get to play Fable the Mirror Breaker, which like you get paid up front, you get this 2/2, you get paid again with some filtration, and then on the 3rd turn you get paid by a card that just wins the game if it's unchecked. Same thing with Planeswalkers, right? It's just like you play a card, you get an FTK something, and then every other turn you have a Howling Mine, and then after a few turns of Howling Mine you have I win the game. And that's how like the old Planeswalkers structured, and pretty much
sounds like a great game that you've described.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound anything like Magic the Gathering, but it sounds like a great game. So everything's an FTK, you're saying?
Yeah.
Every single permanent that you play
is FTK.
Whatever your opponent's thing is, and then starts drawing cards.
Yep.
So it's like a Mole Drifter, an FTK, and surely this thing must be sucking mana from you every turn.
It's like no,
right? It's not just generating value for no reason, right?
Well, it's ironic because Fable the Mirror Breaker is basically a fixed Planeswalker, because like Fable's horrible, right? Like Fable's like it's overpowered card. It's the most powerful standard printed card, in the past like 3 years or whatever. But what's crazy about the fact
format that has had Oko.
Yeah, after Oko and Uro, right? But the fact that that's true is kind of crazy, because beforehand, those cards were like Oko or Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Even though I don't know.
I think people who say that
or like Little Teferi
don't really understand Magic card powering. I have yet to hear an argument why Fable the Mirror Breaker should have been banned and is more powerful than Wedding Announcement. Like Wedding Announcement has a much higher floor.
Well, yeah, just nobody cast that card now. It's
impossible to beat, and its ceiling is insane.
You can't make that argument because nobody plays Wedding Announcement in standard. I mean, maybe they do. I think
that's
Esper's
not true.
like
Wedding Announcement decks is great. It's just the problem is the Fable decks were better pairs with the overpowered 5 casting cost black cards.
Yeah, sure.
So like Fable plus Invoke Despair was good in part because the Fable fixed your mana to cast the Invoke Despair, right? So like it was those things in concert with one another. The Fable decks would not have gotten banned if there were not black cards. I mean, that were enabled.
But Fable's one of the best cards that's been added to the Modern card pool too. So
yeah,
like, and Wedding Announcement doesn't do anything in Modern.
Yeah, it's played. But I mean, you're talking about relative power.
I know, but
that's right. Like
I'm making a point.
Questing Beast.
I'm making a point that the
is
card
a better large format card than it was in Standard. I made the argument to Chapin. I was just like, I think Wicked Wolf is better than Questing Beast.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Did you see all of the abilities on Questing Beast? It wasn't actually until the Cat Oven deck emerged that Questing Beast got really good in Standard. Like Wicked Wolf was way better in Standard before that.
Well, but this is not my point. Like, my point is that Fable is not a Planeswalker, and it's one of the most impactful cards in the recent.
It's too good. I'm just saying it's not really better than Wedding Announcement.
Yeah, but you're you're piggybacking onto my giant point with your gripe about Wedding Announcement, which is just off topic.
I mean, I don't know, man. Sam beat me with Wedding Announcements when I was playing Fables, but then I realized that Sam
also had Fables.
Yeah, he broke the mirror by having Fables in his Wedding Announcement.
Yeah, geez.
Which is some BS if you ask me. I'm like, my whole strategy was to beat these Wedding Announcement decks with Fable, and I'd put all this work into it, you know. And then this Wedding Announcement jerk is putting Fables in his Wedding Announcement deck, and now what do I have?
I mean, regardless,
a bunch of red creatures.
Regardless, Wedding Announcement is also the kind of card that I'm talking about. That just like you invest mana into it, and then your payoff from that mana is like so great.
Yeah,
right?
your value relative to 3 mana is absurd,
right? Because I mean, the way that it scales is just, I mean, this is kind of what people are talking about with contemporary Magic, right? Because a Jackal Pup doesn't scale exponentially; it just scales linearly. I mean, it scales exponentially in that it takes a larger percentage of your life total every time it gets in.
The low end version of a Wedding Announcement is 6 power across 3 bodies, which is absurd.
Yeah.
Like for 3 mana, that's the shitty Wedding Announcement.
Yeah, and then otherwise it just draws you a bunch of cards.
Yeah, otherwise you're just annihilated.
But I mean, and if you think about it, Ragavan as the natural evolution of Jackal Pup is just simply a way. Like Ragavan is like a fixed Jackal Pup for Modern, right? And Ragavan somehow hasn't caught ban. People thought that it should catch a ban, but it's just like this is how good your 2/1 for 1 has to be playable in this format, right? Like getting 2 damage in a turn is not good enough, right? It has to get 2 damage in a turn.
What are you talking about? I've been getting 2 damage in a turn and letting my opponent draw a card.
Yeah.
Been just fine.
Draw you a card and give you a Lotus Petal.
Just fine.
So anyways, I love decks like this. I mean, the reason is because I just love, you put it this way. Like I love putting people in check. I love being the deck that also puts people in like Mate in 2 or Mate in 3 or Mate in 6, right? You just play Meddling Mage. It's like, okay, well, this is Mate in 10. So what you got? And that's my style, right? So one of the things that we talk about David Daniels making attacks with Mishra's Factories. I think his style of landstill is successful for him. But I also want to talk about deck design, right? So it's like, okay, well, you have a style that also just means you have to build your own deck. So for some reason, and I don't really understand, but for some reason, Jerry Thompson thinks that Modern Scam should not be running Takenuma, like the complete freebie spell land that you can play in your mana base.
What is his argument for this?
I have no idea, but I'm just like, this just doesn't matter to me because he's a good player. Other good players are saying play it, and I'm just like, some of these cards, like players just want to play the card, like because it makes sense to them how they want to play the game. So like,
Takenuma seems like a really good card in that deck for me because your removal is creatures.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the reason free creatures at that, I think, okay, let's make up a case. One is that it's a Mountain Under Blood Moon. 2 is that the deck only runs 3 basics, and there are like Demolition Field of Ruins decks out there that punish non-basics, and God knows what else. Maybe there's like a Swamp's Matter situation. Regardless, the
Demolition Field decks make everything into a swamp anyway.
Well, the thing is, if you have 3 rather than 4, then you have 1 less swamp to search out. Or maybe Jerry's just saying like 4 things that only tap for black is too bad, and you should be playing another fetch land or another dual land. But regardless, like, it's kind of like Luis Not Vargas. picking up the Blue-White Dreadnought deck and just being like, what's this Brain Freeze for? It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to play it. Like, well, one, he didn't know. And maybe if he knew, he could navigate a plan around it. But like Richer picks up the deck and he's like, what's this Brain Freeze for? And he's like,
let's add more.
Yeah, let's run 2. Like I had 1.
Yeah.
Like I had 1.
But
I was just like, Itai, this is the plan.
He also used this as a counterspell, right? Like he brought it in against idiots with Enlightened Tutors.
Right, exactly. And that,
even if those same idiots had Gaia's Blessing.
And if you don't have, and so David Raska is playing against Grotog. And he had access to Brain Freeze, and he didn't play Brain Freeze against Robin in the top 8 of the Fall Brawl. And he's just like, oh, well, I just like don't think I'm gonna get these Brain Freezes off, especially because my opponent's the Psychotog deck. It's like, well, it doesn't matter if your opponent has Psychotog if they're drawing from an empty library. And it's clear that your opponent wants to suppress your Dreadnoughts, and it's clear that you want to suppress your opponent's threats. So if both of you are playing a suppress versus suppress game, and both of you are casting a bunch of Gush, then maybe you should just play your Brain Freeze. But that's the thing, is like he had it and he didn't use it.
How can he suppress the creatures in Grotog? He doesn't have your removal.
He has powder
kegs.
He has 2 powder kegs and a grip of counterspells. He has way more counterspells than Grotog does.
Oh, I see.
And he can block the. No, you have 6.
Play a Gear 2 game from the hand.
You can play a Gear 2 game from the hand, and the reason why you can is because you have Mishra's Factory to hold off Meddling Mage indefinitely, and then your opponent just has 6 creatures from that point, and most of them are going to get milled by Brain Freeze. So, and plus you have Powder Keg. So Powder Keg
play Mono Blue Dreadnought with Mishra's Factory.
Yeah, there you go. Tuesday. And Powder Keg, I would go up to 4, but Powder Keg picks up whatever the counters miss. So. But David was just like, yeah, I just like didn't think I'd be able to freeze him out. And like, that's not, I don't know if that's 100% accurate. I don't know if we're at the point, I mean, someday we're going to have an AI that can tell us if that was accurate. But until then, and there is a right play, right? But until then, you still have to play with style. You have to set yourself up to succeed.
No, but so I think that you can play with, but style is at the deck construction, place, and that style once you're playing is just errors. And like in Magic, you either it's like we were talking about the AI in chess, you're either more likely or less likely to win based on every decision that you're making. One of the advantages of Mono Blue Dreadnought is that it gives you more opportunities to make decisions. That said, I think that what we're not at with AIs yet is, but maybe we'll get there, and I don't know if there'll still be humans playing games against AIs at this point, is that depending on what you do, it can change what your opponent is going to do, right? Yeah. And that like AI is just like, oh, in the dark, this play is more likely to generate. I mean,
the AI is playing itself, right? So the AI can play game theory optimal poker, and the reason is just like it doesn't matter what your opponent does. Your opponent can't exploit this.
Yeah. So all the time when if I'm playing Oath Pollution, right? Just to get back to actually pre-modern decks that we.
No, I have one more tangent. I have one more tangent before.
And I'm playing against Dreadnought, right? I'm going to want to have Sphere of Resistance and all of my enchantment and artifact. I mean, my artifact removal, but not raise, right? But naturalize and seal and everything. I'm going to have all of those in, even though, a player like Rich Shea or Francisco is going to side out some Dreadnoughts, right? And try to win some other way against me. So I don't know if that's that wrong.
Well, so
okay,
let me tell you this. So one of the problems is that there is an absolute correct play, right? It's not too beyond doubt that simply put, math is absolute, and you can say that there's a most accurate play. However, my thesis is that Magic is so strategically complex that a human will never be able to play a 100% accurate game of Magic. And because of that, they shouldn't strive to.
Some games of Magic are very short, so I think a human would be able to.
I'm saying
to play a.
Okay, let's just say over a large sample.
Like playing on Arena or something.
You can't play, Mike. You can't play 100% accurately over the course of, let's say, a tournament. A player will never play 100% accurate tournament, right? Like probably even in 3 matches, you're not gonna play 100% accuracy. And this is because or just let's not even say that. It's like, okay, well maybe you can play 100% accurate in a game where you didn't draw any lands, right? But you're never going to play 100% accurate in a lot of these weird mid-range, whatever, these scenarios which are very strategically complex. And the reason is we're not capable of computing at the level of an AI. We can only compute in a way that's functional for us. And so we need style to dictate. We need style and heuristics. We need tendencies to help us perform the best that we can internally. So obviously this comes with deck construction, right? So some players like Dreadnought and some players like Goblins, right? Both are great decks for a tournament. And I would not, this is like the Jack White Edge thing. It's like, I would not tell a Goblins player to play Dreadnought, even if I think Dreadnought is a 5% more accurate or 15% edge, because I just think a Goblins player is going to have better, this is just like a style. So the skills are transferable, right? If you're good at Magic, you can transfer skills. But no matter how good you are in Magic, Reed Duke might be one of the, might be the best active, living, prepared Magic player on Earth right now. He's still not going to play. Yeah. He's still not going to play one deck or over another, even if he thinks that deck is much more well positioned, if he doesn't feel like it matches its style. And so I do think that style is real. And when I have I think that you're right in that style is also a leak. Like, if you have style and you're too obsessed with your own style and you're just like, I'm a beatdown player, I'm like a whatever, and you don't like branch out, you don't try to apply your thinking to other puzzles in Magic, then you're going to make yourself a worse player.
So I think that one of the things that binds players is that unless you're just a full-time Magic, like Reed is more or less a full-time Magic player, right? Unless you're a full-time Magic player, you don't have time to develop all of the different like nuanced skills.
Yeah.
So like one of the things that I've done for a long time is just default to decks where I have a high likelihood of playing. Like you said, probably can't play perfectly all the time, but like
as accurate as you can.
Yeah, like I don't like. There's just mistakes I don't make, right? Like I don't play the wrong land in a modern burn deck, right? Like I watch other people play, they're constantly playing the wrong land, and they don't even understand like how devastating some of their decisions are, right? Like by what they played the wrong land on this turn, that like the cascading problems that they could have by playing the wrong land. So like that's just not a mistake that I make, right? It's like I evaluate, like sometimes you don't play an Inspiring Vantage in the first 3 turns because you actually, so like let's say for sake of argument I'm playing against Scam and they might have a Ragaman, right? So I might play a Scalding Tarn on turn 2 instead of an Inspiring Vantage because I want to maximize the searing in my hand, right? And then if they don't play the Ragaman, I might not break the Scalding Tarn there so that I save it for a future searing, depending on what my planned next play is going to be. But like I just play this, I'm not ever going to make this mistake, right? Whereas when I was playing Oath Peluche, for example, one of the things that I was just like, I don't really want to play this deck. I think that if I play Goblins, I'm going to play it at a very high level, right? Like maybe the 90th percentile, let's say, like maybe not the 99th percentile. But I played it above the 80th percentile. Whereas I didn't even know what any of the routines in Oath Peluche were.
Right, exactly.
I'm just like, I don't know. I guess you.
No, and that's like, and that's a great point. And we were just like, you should just play Oath Peluche for content. Like obviously, if you're trying to win, you probably should have played Goblins. But
I don't know if I would have done better.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, but you would have been more comfortable in your burn matchup, right? So like in sample size of 1, Goblins was probably a better pick for the turn.
I would have actually played if it was burn Goblins, because I think the burn players think that's a good matchup for burn. But I have lost from the burn side. And I'm just like, this is.
It doesn't feel. Yeah, it doesn't feel
right.
Great.
Like, and then like I watched Fran play, and he's like, no, this is a bad matchup. I'm like, yo, you don't know what the cards do.
Yeah,
He's just like, oh.
Let's not retell that story. You can tune into earlier Spike Colonies for that story.
Yeah. So and then whereas I did not think that I had a chance, I would have actually just tried to win the tournament from Goblins, I think, instead of just settling for 4. But I also wouldn't have been in that situation, because if I was Goblins, I would have just beaten Stasis in the second round.
Yeah, there you go. Well, okay. So how do you feel? Style is real. Are we agreed now? You like where I'm coming from?
Style. Yeah. It exists, right? Just like, oh, is gravity real? Well,
no.
To the extent that I'm aware of the forces around me, gravity's real. But I don't have an opinion about. Gravity is more of an opinion about me than I have about it, right? Like that's the way I'd talk about gravity. Like style exists, but. I think that when we talk about style as Magic players, we are just talking about a leak.
Yeah,
except in the case of like me, like playing Modern Burn or something. I'm just like, hey, there's
there's a bunch of resources that make Modern Burn a good choice for me, where it might have been like a better choice than something else. I'm not going to make certain mistakes that I would make with other decks, and I've just built up an enormous amount of miles.
Yeah. The bottom line is that I
own all the cards.
Yeah.
So I don't have to spend $2,000 to buy a different Modern deck that is going to go out of fashion next month.
Yeah, of course.
So like just from a resource standpoint, I have I keep top 8ing, so I'm not doing bad.
Mike, obviously we're controlling for extraneous factors, right? We're just saying what player, what deck, right? So we're assuming perfect collections. And even if you take out all those, other excuses that you made, the one thing that you can't excuse is that you probably play a, 90 plus game with Burn, and you would probably play like a 70 plus game with Scam. And your feeling is that 90 plus Burn is better than 70 plus Scam. And you might be right. And you also might be wrong. Cause 70% Scam is still, a pretty insane deck. But,
well, I mean, I looked at Karsten's most recent breakdown. It looks to me that Burn was better across the board than Scam. I just happened to play against Hammer Time, which is
one of
considered
the
by most
horrible
people
matchups.
The worst matchup, right? And I just didn't.
The worst matchup is probably Belcher.
Well, anyway, so I think I could set up my deck to have a positive matchup against Hammer Time, but it would require me bending over backwards to beat Hammer Time.
So let me add one more line to this, which is just that for months we have basically been saying like, Blue White Dreadnought's better than Mono Blue Dreadnought. And one of the things that the Mono Blue Dreadnought players like to say is just that this Mono Blue just fits my style. And like, I just feel more comfortable with the deck. And we're like, okay, well, that's copium. But I think that despite the fact that it is copium, and I do think that, I do think that it is a strategic mistake, I am accepting and acknowledging that if you play a better game of Mono Blue than you play a Blue White, then it might be personally correct for you, to play Mono Blue, to continue playing Mono Blue. I think it would be correct if you have the time to learn some Blue White.
If I had been able to get Hacker to play in Sacred Torch, right, I would have made him Mono Blue Dreadnought.
Right, because
he wouldn't have known what to name with meddling.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, that's the reason why. But I mean, that is a legit.
Except for that's not difficult because okay, so the thing is, I guess I spent a 4-hour drive with Itai and I went down every list of deck and I was like, here's what you name with Meddling Mage. For this deck,
you couldn't identify a lot of the decks that he was playing against.
Yeah, no,
it's actually a problem that he had.
No. But then I would just tell him, I was like, look, if your opponent plays a land that produces white mana, you named Swords of Plowshares. If your opponent plays a land that produces green mana, you name Survival of the Fittest. And I can't think of anything else I would name.
Those are the only two cards you would name. Yeah. So the problem is
people are always like, can I get a Meddling Mage guide? Meddling Mage guide, one line, name Swords to Plowshares. If their deck doesn't make white, just board them out.
What is the second Meddling Mage name then? Meddling Mage.
Also, yeah. Meddling Mage. Yeah. I mean, Wrath of God. I don't know. Just like Last Breath. Last Breath.
Yeah, I drove Kaplan into Mono Blue Dreadnought for LobsterCon because I beat him with Meddling Mages in the Landstill versus Blue White Dreadnought matchup at the last meetup before LobsterCon. And I'm like, oh, you just need to have 2 Last Breaths.
Yeah.
He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, we're on 2 Last Breaths now.
And then he was like, screw that. I'm just gonna play 0 Last Breath.
Play Mono Blue.
He's like, this doesn't work with my style, and the rest is history.
I mean, that's really frustrating though if you think about it, right? Like, I just drew more Meddling Mages than him, and he only had 1 Last Breath in his sideboard.
Yeah, versus just losing if he just didn't have any white cards. So, he's just like, oh man, that sucks. I'd rather just lose 100% of the time than when I don't draw my Last Breath.
I can totally understand. Just like, this is stupid, right? Like you get to a certain level.
Yeah, but then you just play goblins.
Having 2 Last Breaths is the difference between winning the Meddling Mage fight and losing the Meddling Mage fight.
Fair enough.
I mean, it seems stupid, Leonie.
I mean, I agree. I mean, the deck is still, whatever, scoreboard times a million. So I was saying that what would happen?
David in the Fall Brawl seems to disagree with you.
I mean, that's true. So I was David Vraska, Mono Blue Fall Brawl. Look it up; it was awesome. My initial point about an hour ago was that people net deck F-Polish all the time, right? And So a lot of people bring Fran's decks to these tournaments. When Euros was like flashing up on screen, like I saw some decks. I was like, this is 75 of 75 of Oath Peluche. And like at other points, I was just like, this is like 70 cards out of Fran's blue-white Dreadnought build, but the one from 6 months ago. And I was just like, did this guy just like have it in a box? And then it was just like, yeah, good enough. And then they're like Enlightened Tutor for Dreadnought, And it's like,
he just didn't tune up his DeLorean.
Exactly. So
he's at Lone Pine Mall instead of Twin Pines Mall.
Yeah. So
that's a little Back to the Future humor for you.
Oh my God. Okay. This is a stupid tangent, but I have to bring it up. Thanksgiving Day Parade. There's currently a Back to the Future musical. And they were singing their musical version of Back in Time. And any Ancestral Recall listeners get their regular dose of original Back in Time by Huey Lewis and the News. And the musical version just sucked all of the soul and grit and like life out of this song. I was like in the kitchen cooking food. I was like hearing this rendition of Back in Time, and I was just like, no, I just can't. Anyways, okay. Horrible.
Guess who's here? Guess who's here now?
Roman Fusco. Roman.
How did you know?
Because obviously.
All right, so Roman wants to play in a bunch of tournaments, including the 9th.
Ninth RCQ.
We're gonna play in.
Sweet.
So he's just like, yo, can I just stay with you in your apartment for X date to Y date? And I said,
I have no room. Oh, no, or if we record 10,
one of us can sleep on the couch.
If we record 10 episodes, including Iron Man vs. the Hulk.
So I was just like, how many Ancestral Recalls do you plan to record during this time period? I'm like, oh man. Then I look at the shower that day. I was just like, what if like Lanny against Roman in the top 4, and we were all playing same 75?
Oh, I have to borrow it from friend of the podcast, Phil Quinn, again, because I still don't have any burn cards.
Yeah, but it's whatever it be.
I'll probably play a Ragavan deck because I own Ragavans. So that will be sweet. I'm still, trying to queue up for an Iron Man versus the Hulk Ancestral Recall. Maybe we'll just do it on here. Just plagiarize.
Can we get to let's go with 0.5 decks in the tier list?
So
it's been an hour and a half.
So
we haven't talked about any pre-modern decks.
No, we've talked. This has been a great cast so far. I've loved these topics. I think the style topic was one of the most exciting. I think it's super interesting, and I think we need to lend more grace to people who say they have a style. But we also, it's also important to look yourself in the mirror and just be like, sometimes style is copium. So, Oath Peluche, I just put it on top of the tier list. One, I wanted to ruffle some feathers and get some hot takes. Engagement farm.
Let me read the words of Lan Feng Wan on this one. Oath Peluche. More people should play this deck. It plays super well into the rest of tier 1. It's weak to control and combo decks since they don't trigger Oath. Most decks that trigger Oath are in trouble, and Sphere of Resistance plus Wasteland /Port /Cataclysm can stop a lot of the rest or steal a bad matchup. It can gas out sometimes. We're considering 4 Sylvan libraries. Trust me, I'm as surprised as you are that this is at the top of the list, but I can't really see a reason why not. Okay, one reason is that those who played this deck at Euros found middling results. I won't read the rest of it. It was about mono green. I will, however, say that I said that Oath Peluche could never beat Landstill. Never beat Landstill. And I allowed Lanny to win because I decreed for one too many tokens. And then allowed him to trigger his Oath.
I tagged with a Treetop Village. I tagged with a Treetop Village, and Mike was like, decree for 4. And I was like, good.
Found a way.
And then he was like blocked with 4 tokens, and I was like, okay. And then next upkeep, I'm like, trigger Oath. And then Mike was like,
2 swords and a wrath in my hand, but it wasn't.
Mike's just like, I forgot that card had text. Swords your own token. You got to swords your own token.
No, I didn't have any.
Pick up your
I would have swords my own stupid token. But I found a way. But I will say to you, Lanny is super unfair by putting one of my favorite decks, Landstill in tier 2, and calling it the Rock and also blue-white.
The Rock.
Landstill. Because among other things, Oath Pollution, unless you do something like I just, it could just never beat Landstill.
So
this is a horrible.
I mean, this is just like
years to win.
This is just like a break in your algorithm, because you're thinking that like if you roll up to a tournament, you're going to find the one Landstill player and lose to them. And I'm thinking if my opponent is playing Landstill, I'll probably still beat them because they were dumb enough to bring Landstill.
I played and defeated multiple Landstill players with Oath Pollution, but that's what I formulated the idea that Oath Pollution can never beat Landstill, because I was beating them and I'm just like, if you just didn't make this horrible mistake on turn 4, I would never have been able to.
So my biggest disclaimer about this tier list is I do presume that pilots are playing their decks appropriately. And that's why I said, I was like, you're going to lose to control and you're going to lose to combo. Like if you play Oath Pollution against Hermit Feb, you're going to have a difficult time. Now, granted, there's something you can do.
Fran was arguing with me about this. He's like, well, I bring all these cards in.
Yeah, he's like, I got Curse Totem.
And I'm like, irrelevant, right? And then he's just like, why? I'm like, I bring in 2 Dust Bowls and whatever I said I was going to bring in, 2 Dust Bowls and an Annul or something, right? And he's just like, oh, wow. I'm like, yeah, good luck beating 4 Dust Bowls. And he's just like, yeah, I never could.
He did not.
But he's just like, no, I talked to Fran about this. He's just like,
I saw the conversation.
Trump card, 4 Dust Bowls has been known since Landy Ho. Nobody does it.
I've
that
like
Trump card.
No, I've this Michael J stuff. Anyways, Fran is.
It's a better story, my way.
I know. It's just
and it's functionally the same.
It's really not. It's just not at all.
There's no these Oath Pollution players can beat a properly designed Landstill deck.
Well, no. So this is the problem. Is like one of the reasons why it's kind of dumb for me to put at the top of the tier list is just like not a lot of people play it. The list is still in flux, right? So everything else I have in this tier list is a pretty settled list, and I can say pretty confidently.
I don't think Elves is settled anymore. I was going to write an article about Elves actually.
Well, I don't think Elves is settled, but I do think that if you bring any of your great options, Tangle Wire Elves, Natural Order Elves, or cut the Tangle Wires for whatever you like Elves, all 3 of those decks are really good. Now, we did play quite a few rounds of Elves in which I cast. We just like stacked the deck, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to play an Elves deck, and it's going to have a main board of like
4 Natural Order,
4 Natural Order, 4 Natural Order, 4 Blossoms, and 4 Nishoba. I don't like playing Roots. I was also testing no Roots, and basically I was just like, got the Nishoba in play, gain 14 life, or gain 7 life, then gain 5 life, then gained 2 life, then gain 0 life.
To begin with, the matchup we were playing was Lanny stacked Elves against Goblins.
Yeah.
Lanny won the first 2 games from the Elves side, which is 2 more games than I think I've ever won in this matchup. So he's just like, this match, I knew this matchup wasn't bad. And I'm like, this matchup's horrible. Like, I just I just faded. It was terrible. Then Lanny proceeded to go 3rd turn.
Not 3rd turn, 4th turn. Because I have Blossoms, not Roots, remember?
Yeah, like Nishoba. And I'm like, I'm going to win this game. And you're like, how? I won the game. Then he get it again, and I won the game. And I'm like, then he comes to the conclusion, just like, this is terrible. I can't win the games that I have Phantom Nishoba in game 1.
Right, exactly. I was just like, okay, well, this Phantom Nishoba is like bad, and also the only reason I'm losing these games is because you have Sharpshooter. So I'm just like, okay, well then let's just play Massacre or our own Sharpshooter, or like let's play Mog Fanatic, and just Survival of Mog Fanatic. And then you're just like, well, Goblins should just play 2 Sharpshooter, and we're like, okay, good.
Or more than 2 Sharpshooter.
Yeah, Goblins should play 2 or 3 Sharpshooters. Elves should play only Answers to Sharpshooter and forget about Natural Order. And then somebody like reacted to my tier list and was just like, well, Natural Order is good in other matchups. And I'm like, what other matchups? You win all the other matchups. Yeah, but
good in red.
It's good in red, but it's like rough. It's close to as good as Well-Wisher, and it's like not costing. Well-Wisher isn't costing you 100 slots.
Won one match that happens to have been a very high profile match, to be fair, right? He won one match does not mean that the preponderance of Elves' experience versus Red is obvious, because Ole would say it's a bad match.
Well, that's the thing is like, what would you rather do? Would you rather put 2 main deck Natural Order, 2 sideboard Natural Order, 1 sideboard Phantom Nishoba, 2 main deck Wall of Roots, or would you rather just play 4 Tempting Worm in your sideboard? I'd rather play 4 Tempting Worm in my sideboard.
I like to play the Natural Order combo because I always hated Tanglewire.
Yeah, but you can just play more Deranged Hermit's main, because Deranged Hermit costs 1 more mana than Natural Order, and it does basically the same thing as Natural Order every time.
Well, one thing that I guess I would quote unquote agree with Lanny on is I never Natural Ordered for Verdant Force even one time in the meetup I won last week. All I ever did was Natural Order for Deranged Hermit or Kamal.
Exactly.
But I like the fact that I got like a forecasting cost Kamal that I could get online.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So that's just, to me, that's just style right there. Cause I'm just like, what?
No, it was
like,
just
what
Kamal's, and I paid a discount.
I'm just like, that's just like a dumb line. That's just like much simpler if you just like also put 9 power in play via Deranged Hermit.
No, I killed my opponent with the Kamal that I got for 4 mana.
Yeah, but regardless, I think that's narrow. That's not utilizing a card slot to its fullest. Your like wins over replacement is going to be better, in my opinion, if you just play more good stuff. In Elves, you have like no.
So you're saying like BK style, just all the deranged turns.
The idea of Natural Order is just like, okay, how do you win the game without Survival of the Fittest? Just like, well, I'm going to cast Natural Order. I'm just like, does that win you the game? Like,
no, the idea of Natural Order is sometimes you have Survival of the Fittest and burn kills all your elves anyway. So you play a 7/7/1/1 maker and you race them, or you get an Nishoba and it's too much for them to handle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong, like I agree, but this is what I would say. It's like, if Natural Order only beats burn, and it improves your burn matchup by, whatever. Most people are playing the Nishobas in the sideboard, so you still have to win game 2 and 3 off the back of Natural.
No, but
Order.
I think that it goes from like, I don't know. What do you think the equilibrium game 1 is? 25%. It's higher now.
No, my point is actually just simple. It's just like, okay, Natural Order might make your burn matchup whatever X% better, right? It doesn't make your other matchups that better. And then if it's X minus whatever, just going with the Well-Wisher plan that we had before, then just do the Well-Wisher plan and play a better deck into every other deck.
Describe to me why Tanglewire is good.
I don't think you have to play Tanglewire. I think you just play other cards. Like, I'm not saying Tanglewire is better than Natural.
The card that most people play is Tanglewire.
Tanglewire is good because it's double Time Walk plus draw 2 cards. I mean, it's just double Time Walk.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the matchups, like I've lost with Tanglewire hands against, for example, green white no oath. Yeah. Right. I've lost with Tanglewire hands against blue white. They just let the Tanglewire resolve.
Yeah, I know.
Right, and then they're just like, all right, tap down.
Because you have to kill them. You still have to kill them. That's why I don't like Tanglewire. Like, if you have a hand with Tanglewire and doesn't kill them, then it's not good.
Like the problems that Elves has, like I've beaten Elves a lot with a lot of different decks, which is one of the reasons why I really love Elves. I think it's the most fun deck.
Well, granted, your opponents probably missed a bunch, like probably leaked a bunch.
Fine, whatever. Like so, but I've never been so high about Elves tier wise if someone else is playing it other than me, and for the reasons it's just like I've beaten Elves with Meddling Mage, I've beaten Elves with Humility, I've beaten Elves with Slice and Dice, I've beaten Elves with Lava Dart, I've beaten Elves with Spark Spray, like. There's a lot of things that I've beaten Elves with, and none of the things that people talk about from these flex slots solve any of the problems that Elves has, but a Natural Order might. Well, right? You just I'm literally get into a spot where the Natural Order gets them because you win the game. Most of the time, Elves loses to like a lockdown Humility plus other stuff, or they get all their Elves slice and diced, and then now the opponent only has to deal with one card at a time. Like those are, if you just kill them real fast, right? Then they can't use these control elements to beat you. That's my experience with and against Elves.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I mostly lose games because of Mana Flood or like didn't draw a payoff. So my thing is like, okay, just draw payoffs more, and I'm like, Natural Order is not the best payoff.
Yeah, but the problem with payoffs and Elves is that you presuppose you have to hit the Elves and then you get to the payoffs, right? Like you can't have them in the wrong order because you just have a deck with like 12 lands and 5 drops now.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I don't think that Natural Order bridges the gap better because it still presupposes that you have something in play. It
wins the game real fast.
No,
right? Like you have to deal with your 7/7 now.
Yeah, that's not hard. You've it's demonstrably it's demonstrably not hard for like a lot of decks to do. It's like I want it to be hard for every deck. Like I want every deck to struggle against the thing that I invested 2 cards and 4 mana into.
But there's no
I don't even know what word to use. Like, I mean, if there was a Craterhoof behemoth or something.
Yeah, obviously.
One thing, but there's not, right?
Yeah.
So like a Verdant Force really is the best thing.
Yeah, if there was. No, I mean, but that's true. But because that's true, I don't think it's potent enough. Like, I think, like, I'm just saying that I think that Deranged Hermit, like 2 more copies of Deranged Hermit, where people are playing natural order, is just good enough most of the time, and then it's like better in a lot of the time, and it's only sometimes worse and then barely so. It's just like not like, what is Verdant Force? The first turn it attacks, it's attacking with 8 power. It's like, well, what's Deranged Hermit? It's like the first turn it attacks with 9 power, and you can pick it up with Symbiote, and you can, you know, like whatever, and you didn't invest 2 cards into it. You have to invest 10 mana. Obviously it's not great, but it's just kind of like, it's so close. I'm just kind of like, well, why are we like doing like, I just want to run. I'm just like, okay, well, elves, you know, just stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, just play the walls and don't play the natural order.
Let's validate your statement. Oath Ploosh plays well into the rest of tier 1. I'm gonna accept for a moment that land still is not tier 1, even though it is. Red Green Goblins.
So not. It's so not. This is copium.
Red Green Goblins versus Oath Ploosh. I like Oath Ploosh, but like maybe 51%. I don't think this is a good matchup. I think this is like. I like Oath Ploosh. It's like
I definitely agree that Goblins has some play here, but I am skeptical about if you give Goblins a good draw versus like if you give Oath Ploosh an average draw, you know, like that's like my thing. I was like, okay, well, I
lost to Tom. I don't think I would have lost to a non-Pro Tour champion.
Yeah,
like, literally, he took a line that a Pro Tour champion would take, and a pre-modern or average pre-modern player would have lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, did you consider, like, I mean, I don't know, do you think that you could have played your game better too?
No, I think I played. I think I just
because my tier list
a certain way, and like I played in a way that I could win the game the next turn if I drew basically anything, and I drew a 3 Cassicus Goblin where I needed a 1 or 2 Cassicus.
Yeah, I mean, my tier list presupposes that both players are playing well, and I think that if both players are playing well, Oath Ploosh just has a little bit more power. It can miss on a lackey draw. It sometimes like doesn't have a great opening 7. It doesn't like mulligan particularly well in its current form with a lot of diamonds.
Oath Ploosh's breakers, like Cataclysm is quite good. Oath is good but very answerable even in game 1. That's one of the problems. And like Sphere is bad.
But I mean, don't give me that.
What? Sphere is bad?
No, don't give me Oath is terrible. Don't give me Oath is going to run into 2 of Naturalize inopportune, because it's 2 of Naturalize plus whatever else, you know?
Yeah, but it's the it's not like, okay, what is the likelihood I draw Oath versus the likelihood you draw Naturalize, right? Because there's twice as much likelihood that you draw Oath than I draw Naturalize, right? You might mulligan to Oath, and I'm not going to mulligan to Naturalize.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have 4 Oath plus however many Enlightened Suitors you have, and I have 2 Naturalize. The question is, what is the likelihood you win if I draw a Naturalize? And the answer is basically 0, right? So like all the games that I draw a Naturalize, you just crater to 0, and some of the games, and you're not playing a Shard Phoenix Ancestor's Chosen deck, so like a lot of the time I'm just like, okay, you have Oath, you're gonna get Terravores. If they're not like, I lost because the first Terravore was 1919.
Yeah,
right. Like if they're just a normal Terravore, I just run all my guys.
I understand that. I think that your evaluation of the range is extremely optimistic for Goblins, because Goblins has to, like, the average like one of our 3 gears of Goblins, right? It's just like, okay, well, gear 1 is you have Goblin Lackey, right?
Yeah, but they can answer your Lackey.
And sure. Yeah, and gear 1 chooses you, right? This is just like kind of change. So it's like if you just like don't have the gear 1 draw, the Oath Ploosh is gear nothing. Like the Oath Ploosh is like neutral is better than every other Goblin gear. So it's like you're parlaying a lackey draw into
that's necessarily true.
Into reasonable deception.
Sit there and I guess you could fall prey to Cataclysm on the other material.
Exactly. So yeah, that's fair. And I'm not going, look, we're arguing about the margins, right? So
okay, I will agree if I only get to pick one of the 2 decks and the 2 decks are at the table, I pick Oath Ploosh, but it's like 51%. It's not like 70%.
I think it's quite good for Oath Ploosh, but I want to add that the thing that you got to, the lines that you got to, which is just kind of like, okay, well, my plan against Oath is to sit back. It's like, okay, I can't do that because of Cataclysm. Like this is the reason why I think Oath Ploosh is so powerful, because between Cataclysm, Wasteland Port, Manland Plan, Oath the Druids, and Sphere of Resistance, Oath Ploosh is extremely robust of a deck. Like it has a really, really solid, like, my cards are impactful. Like if I don't cast many cards because I play 32 cards that produce mana. We're going to trim some diamonds, but whatever. But like between, if I draw a couple hammers, every problem's a nail, right? Like if I draw like Oath of Druids plus Swords to Plowshares, I'm going to be pretty good against goblins. If I draw double Oath or double Plow or like whatever, or if I draw Oath and Cataclysm, if I draw Sphere of Resistance Cataclysm, if I have well-timed Wastelands or whatever, like when I think about trying to attack this deck, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to play Replenish. And like Replenish can still get Cataclysmed and Wastelanded out of the game. Like I obviously only need to get to 4 mana to start doing severe damage. But like I'm thinking that the absolute worst matchup for Oath Pollution is like some linear like Fluctuator or Landstill, whatever.
It seems very difficult for Oath Pollution to beat Fluctuator.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. Unless there's something we're missing. But my bottom line is just like when I think about like playing other good decks into Oath Pollution, I don't have the same attitude about that matchup than any other good deck, right? So it's like Oath Pollution to me is like good rock. Like it's a deck that has game against everything, but like actually good game against everything because
you can't beat Landstill.
But Landstill's so bad. Like it's just such a bad
Landstill
deck.
is fantastic. You are the only person who doesn't like Landstill. Landstill is the reigning champion.
My tier list, my rules. Landstill's garbage. So prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. You're up. How
many meetups do I need to win with Landstill?
Meetups literally are meaningless to me. Like you're just like fish.
I don't understand why these online tournaments are meaningful, but meetups are not. The
online tournaments, like honestly, the only thing that's meaningful to me is like
if you're the LobsterCon champion,
Swiss,
you get to brag. Well, guess what? The LobsterCon champion and the Spring Fling champion were both Landstill.
All right, Swiss. It's just like large Swiss tournaments, and then like sure, like Brian Selden on Landstill, is farming.
David Daniel on Landstill.
But I just don't. I mean, look, we talk like I don't think the deck is powerful. We have a top 8 from Italy. It's 2 copies of Terrageddon, notably not Oathgeddon.
Oh wait, it's just like I own 4 Moxes, but I use them to summon a Weather
Wayfarer. Yep, exactly. 2 copies of Terrageddon, 1 copy of Grotog. Let's go. Elves, blue-red Stiflenaught. Let's go. Blue-white Siphonaut, Burn, and white Weenie. Let's go. This is a sweet top 8.
Oh wow. White Weenie and Burn.
Notably missing Landstill. Just like
good way to make room for Savannah Lions deck. Okay, I just want to use your own words against you. Of these 4 decks in the top 8, you Blue-White Dreadnought, Elves, Red-Green Goblins, and Oath Pollution, only one of those decks has a positive matchup against Fluctuator. So why is Fluctuator not in tier 1? And if I go to tier 2, I like Fluctuator against Replenish. I like Fluctuator against Hermit Feb. I like Fluctuator against the Rock. I like Fluctuator against Enchantress, and I love Fluctuator against Burn. Why is Fluctuator? I have one bad matchup in the first 2 tiers here. Let's go to the need more data tier. Blue White Weenie. I think that could probably be okay against Fluctuator, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you think the Meddling Mage Wasteland deck
Meddling Mage prohibit deck? Yeah. Like I would like to prohibit your Songs of the Damned. Well, that's gonna resolve. Whatever Rich is cooking might or might not be good against Fluctuator, depending on how many stunted growths.
Yeah.
Angry
stunted
Hermit,
growth is insane versus Fluctuator.
Survival Madness, I think, actually might have the edge against Fluctuator.
Oh, yeah, it's
another one of those, maybe like 45, 60.
No, Survival Madness is going to be super good because it clocks and disrupts.
All right, Mono Black. I mean, Fluctuator's got to annihilate Mono Black, right? This is like keep any 7-card hand. Like, that's the...
Zombies would be good, and...
I mean, Fluctuator's fantastic against all the other aggro decks. You're just saying...
But Zombies is good because...
Good enough?
Yeah, it's a Cabal Therapy aggro deck. So the difference is the way Fluctuator beats aggro decks is that it wins on turn 3. And the way that Fluctuator beats like the Rock is that it wins on turn 10. It's like, Zombies kills you on turn 5 or 6, and it dresses you.
It has the Rock's advantages,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So Black-White, same thing as Mono Black. Psychotog is probably going to annihilate Fluctuator.
Yep.
Any other deck containing Swamps, I don't know. Would it Pit Rack? Pit Rack might be okay against Fluctuator.
Bottomless Pit against Fluctuator.
Yeah, like your material just goes down. You might randomly discard a key card.
Yeah,
like that's actually, I think Pit Rack might be okay. I mean, not good enough to play Pit Rack. I'm just saying heads up, it might be okay.
Growatog obviously is going to have an enormous matchup with Fluctuator. Probably similarly bad to 12-12.
So
you don't even have Fluctuator on your list, and I think it is like it's like ahead against 90% of the.
I mean, it's mostly just because even if we were to play a theoretical 8-round tournament, you're very likely to catch 2 unwinnable matchups.
I mean, I don't know. But you don't have Landstill as a full-on. I mean, if you're Landstill, Flint's gonna beat you. I don't know if
Flint wasn't going to beat Selden. Flint wasn't going to beat Selden. He was like, he didn't beat Selden, actually.
But at that point, Flint had already taken a Landstill guy out in the top 8.
But I'm talking.
He was 3 more beers down at that point.
I'm talking if you're good and your opponent's good, who's going to win? And I think Fluctuator is in the class of decks where that if you're good. I mean, that's the thing. Is like even if you're a good player, you're going to get paired against Meddling Mage. Like. I think that
Sponge times 3 in my main deck.
Look, I'll put it this way. I think if you run 100 Fluctuator players into your tournament simulation, or whatever. If you just like run a simulation and Fluctuator's in the mix, Fluctuator is probably going to win a lot, and it's also going to lose a lot. So I think it's a very polarized deck.
Yeah, it's a very polarized deck,
and it's polarized, and that's good because Karsten Math is just like. You're going to win more trophies with polarized decks. You're going to win more. You're going to lose more trophies. You're going to get a lot of O2 drops, but you're going to get a lot more miracle runs with Fluctuator, case in point Flint Espel, than you would with a deck like Rock, case in point every Rock player of all time.
Because 3 and 2 is never going to take home the trophy.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a lot of 3 and 2s.
Yeah, it's 08 or 8-0 and or 011 and 11 and 0. And so I think that my one concession is just that I agree Fluctuator is probably like an enormously it's like a great deck, and it's a deck that nobody plays and nobody really wants to play, and because of that, it's just not really a metagame for us.
It just doesn't make it to the Lane tier list.
Yeah, I mean, I have a good vibe from Fluctuator, but I'm just not going to tell people to play the deck because they're not going to listen to me. They're just going to be like, well, I don't want to play Fluctuator. I want to play Magic. It's like, okay.
All right, Green Goblins. I think I've read Green Goblins also in number 2, but I don't have Oath Pollution number 1. Resilient, adaptive, stomps elves, and slight favorite over Dreadnought. It's not great against Oath. You can still steal wins thanks to Lackey, naturalizing the fact that Oath decks run fewer Enlightened Tutors these days. Decks that beat it aren't good into the rest of the meta. I think I mostly agree with that. I think Red Green Goblins, or any kind of Goblins really, has a lot of play to it that we can design better and better Goblins decks than have probably been played.
Yep.
I play a Goblins deck that hasn't been updated in 6 months, and I constantly look at my deck and I have way too many cards I would never sideboard in. I have a ton of Tormod scripts and Hull Breaches that were for kind of a cliche metagame that this would never get sided in now. Whereas now I'd probably just play more Tinkerers, Pyrokinesis, and probably play a lot of Sharpshooters. I'm a big Sharpshooter fan right now.
And you would play Sparksmith.
And Sparksmith, yeah. Sparksmith is fast. Okay, and
it's fast at reducing your life total.
Yeah, you don't need to tap him that many times. Right?
It takes down an Exalted Angel. Yeah,
right. That's how Tom beat me. He didn't beat me with Oath. He just hard cast 3 or 4 Exalted Angels and just flipped him.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, let's play fair Magic.
That's the angle, though. That's the angle. It's just it doesn't have to be Oath. That's why Oath Pollution is good. Oath Pollution is good because it's a good Oath deck, but it's also a good green-white mid-range deck.
Yeah, so I would also have Elves in 3rd place, probably for similar reasons. You said makes the best use of survival and cradle. That's an understatement. I'm off natural order because so we talked about this. You weren't even winning the Nishoba games against Goblins. I don't know how I feel about Oath Pollution against Elves. I've only ever won from the Oath Pollution side. Tom had never played the deck before, and he beat 2 Elves decks.
Elves has the best prospect between Elves, Goblins, and Blue-Eyed Dreadnought against Oath Pollution, and because of that, Oath Pollution runs 3 Curse Totem in the sideboard.
Yeah, the Curse Totems plus Oath plus Enlightened Tutor was an impressive amount of card advantage. That's how I beat Cam.
Yeah,
I kind of snuck in game 1. He mulliganed a lot, but then after sideboarding, it was just
Elves is an inconsistent deck.
It's really hard to beat.
One of the things that I think people don't notice as much is that elves is like super inconsistent. You mulligan a lot and you have a lot of mediocre hands. Now, granted,
really, I don't mulligan with elves. So if I have some elves and any payoff, I just keep my hand.
Well, I mean, that's true, but there's so many hands that doesn't happen. I mean, you just get a lot of zero landers.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna third turn Hermit Druid. A lot of people can't beat that. That's like the Rock's whole game plan.
I'm just saying zero. I'm just saying zero. I'm just saying you get a lot of zero landers or like one lander, no elf, whatever. Low mana source hands that flood out. Hands where you just only draw survival guys. You just like pick up a hand, it's like no survival, and it's all your survival guys.
Stop talking spit about my beloved elves. It is the most fun deck to play at Premodern.
Agree.
And
that is saying something because I love playing Premodern. Blue-white Dreadnought. You have this in 4th place of tier 1. This is the best deck in the format, in my opinion. How the Mighty Have Fallen. The deck still slaps. It doesn't slap as high as the other 3, apparently. It doesn't play well into the rest of tier 1. An interesting comment. I feel like the blue-white. I feel like if I'm blue-white, I like my matchup. If I'm elves, I like my matchup. If I'm blue-white, I like my matchup. If I'm goblins,
yeah, you like the Michael J side of the table a lot of the time. I'm trying to make a tier list for the people.
If we had an equilibrium metagame, blue-white would not appear. Well, that's interesting. Be sure to run Brain Freezes and Armageddons in your sub. You want both? I feel like you get one or the other.
No, you can run both. You only need one of each.
Kaplan's got no Brain Freezes, and Rich has got no Armageddons.
Well, that's probably style.
Those plans have solved a lot of problems, but there's nothing you can do to solve your core weakness, which is losing to pressure plus disruption. I have seen a lot of perfectly good Dreadnought players just lose to a Hypnotic Spectre and a Snuff Out.
Yeah.
Spectre, Snuff Out, let's go.
Got him.
Yeah, that you can't argue with that one.
Little dark
duress,
ritual. Yeah.
Duress? What do you mean duress? I don't know. Cabal Therapy. What are you going to name? Dreadnought? I don't know. Counterspell? Foil? I'm going to snuff out your Dreadnought after you use 2 cards on it. Oh, man.
Yeah, I think
you don't have other Dreadnought decks in your tier list at all.
Because I think that for the most part, other Dreadnoughts don't satisfy the Prime Directive.
All right.
That's like the same reason. Somebody was like, what about Trade Wind Survival? And I'm like, the Elves deck is on here. Like, play that one.
All right, so you have Replenish at the top of tier 2. Here's the thing: I'm like the original Replenish guy on our crew, but I'm just maybe I'm not really off it. You just have all my cards, so I can't.
Yeah, you can't play it.
That's probably it.
Got him.
I love Replenish for sentimental reasons, obviously. Hermit Feb. On one hand, players playing suboptimally have found success with this deck. Wow. Was that a front-handed or backhanded slap?
It's front-handed. Mike Harris commented on the Facebook thread and he's talking about me, and I'm like, dude, I'm talking about all of you. The only person I'm not talking about is McLean.
Great pick to steal a tournament though, and very rewarding of player skill. I think you would get a lot of slow play warnings of this deck if we had any judging to speak of, so that's kind of unfair. I think Hermit Feb is a very, very rewarding deck. I love that it exists.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit on last week, and I think
I would never play it versus other decks that I might want to play. If I wanted to scratch a combo, which I don't think I'd play Hermit Feb. I think I would play Flint's deck from last year. I think that deck's underrated.
Yeah, I agree.
The Rock and also Blue-White The Rock, aka Land Still. We're just going to pass on this. This is too...
No, read the paragraph. It's directed directly at you. This paragraph is about you.
These decks will always be good. Call. At granting strong players a lot of agency to win multiple uphill battles per tournament, which is all I want to do in my life, is to just be punched on for 7 rounds, right? 8 rounds, 9 rounds. But just, I got all broken teeth. My fingernails are torn, but I'm at the top of the precipice. A good player might take comfort in knowing they'll likely come out on top against weaker opponents with these. Oh man, I hate you. These decks. They'll also talk themselves into thinking that they can't lose this packs because they're 6 sideboard plans. This sounds triggering. Nonetheless, I expect these decks to rarely succeed beyond the quarterfinals. Well, if you look at today's standings, they didn't even get to the quarterfinals.
The only result that matters is victory. How to win a PTQ. Listen to it. Read it.
Enchantre. I personally don't have much firsthand knowledge on this deck. I honestly don't think it's very good.
but it could do some good things and has some results I can't ignore. So I can't be too wrong in placing it here. Watch out for the blue-green version of the future, or just play Worldly Tutor in green-white. I think that's a slam dunk. I actually own all the Enchantress cards. I just haven't put it together. I also only own one set of Windswept Heaths, which is embarrassing, and they're like not even.
Why is that embarrassing? Windswept Heath is like green-white is historically not a very playable Magic combination.
Yeah,
it's like the most
like,
playable in Premodern.
It's like in all the decks I want to play. Like it was in Loop Junction, Landy Hoth, Oath Peluche.
Yeah, green-white is awesome in Premodern, and it's like pretty mid everywhere else.
Yeah, I only own one set of Windswept Heaths, so. But I would need it for Enchantress. I'm really excited about the blue-green version because it's so fast.
Yep, hyped on it too.
It has a lot. It has a lot of the oomph of the regular Enchantress. And then Burn. This is the deck that I really want to play. Again, this is the deck that got me into Premodern. Very efficient, good as it ever was. Actually, it's better than it ever was, I think. Which I think means that you should put it in tier 1. Harder to play than you think. In a healthy format, Burn should be an equilibrium point. Burn wins a lot of games on its last card /turn/life point. So it's a perfectly balanced deck. Not too strong, not too weak. If your deck is worse than Burn, probably don't play it. Amen, brother. And because of this, Burn unfortunately falls off later rounds of large Swiss tournaments. Currently, Burn is well positioned with Dreadnought falling off and Land Tax being replaced by Oath Peluche, which is a great matchup. However, I used to think Goblins and Elves were slam dunk matchups, but I've seen more and more Burn pilots failing to beat them. This, combined with the lack of results, makes me wary to have Burn any higher. Shout out to the binary soloist.
5-0 in league play. Let's go.
Online league play.
Let's not talk about the ones before. Let's not talk about his previous runs.
He was gearing up. He just didn't know the format.
Yeah, he was learning. Shout out.
Right, like that's a player who's soaking up the format like a sponge.
Yeah, no, love to see it. Also shout out to,
and now he's branching out into other decks.
Yeah,
he's like, I need a sideboard guide for how to play these other decks. I'm really happy when somebody joins the format, and I'm even more happy when it's a mythic number 1 who's like really jumping in with both feet. While he's separately mythic number 1ing with historic Burn still. Like, he always asks me these questions about like which cards to play, like in blue-red wizards or like this combo deck that I don't understand.
He's like, what do you think about this card, Magical Flamefire? It's an alchemy card that says...
The problem is he always wants... He's like, oh, I respect your opinion, but I don't know any of the alchemy cards, right? So I don't really understand how these work.
You like read it and you're like, well, this isn't a Magic card, so I can't tell you if it's good.
To be fair, I was bored playing Standard for a while, so I just let him make my deck, and I just played Historic Burn for a while. It was pretty fun.
That's cool.
And I got some trophies, whatever the equivalent of trophies are.
So I want you to tell me, because you said you have a different number 1 deck in the format. What do you think? You think Blue White Dreadnought's the number 1 deck in the format?
Blue White Dreadnought, yeah. Huh. I think it's just like, I can't remember who said this, but it might have been Woody Allen. I don't remember who said it. It said something along the lines of, at some point, just like anybody who lives anywhere but New York City in their 20s is kind of just kidding.
Nice.
Right. I feel like the same way. Like, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of just kidding. Well, why would you do anything else? Like, I can understand not wanting to raise a family in New York. I can understand not wanting to have your career in New York. Like, people pay way less rent to own their houses, than I pay, right? Like, they have more space, they own cars, all kinds. But like the things that I like about life are only in New York, right? Like, I have a thriving Premodern community. I have like a lot of friends here. I have no shortage of amazing restaurants where I can order a ribeye, which is all I ever order anywhere. And like there's literally maybe one city in the entire country that compares to New York on a nightlife standpoint. And if you're like wanting to do like legitimate nightlife stuff, like my parents are going to go to 2 Broadway shows today, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do
nowhere else. Yeah. So, everybody should be playing Blue White Dreadnought. I mean, I agree, but I agree because other people are still not bringing good plans for Blue White Dreadnought. Like I said, like you'll be seated with Dave Kaplan in like a bracket. It's just like, okay, well, what deck would you play if you saw somewhere in your bracket of a top 8 bracket or top 16 was Dave Kaplan? Like, what would you play?
Okay, so the only data point I have is that Dave Kaplan is there.
Well, Dave Kaplan and 14 other guys.
I mean, I don't know how much I want to play Dave Kaplan on a Blue White Dreadnought mirror. I mean, have both beaten Dave Kaplan and lost to Dave Kaplan with a variety of decks. I went on a good streak against Dave Kaplan over the summer, playing always land still. So maybe I would default to land still.
Exactly.
If I knew I were in that situation.
So if this is what I said about Equilibrium, because I'm just like, okay, well, if we have a tournament and we're just like, there's going to be a lot of blue-white players, or there's going to be some, like it's going to be 15%. And other people are going to play goblins, other people are going to play elves. It's like if people play more goblins and elves have good blue-white dreadnought matchups. Like Oath Peluche has,
but they have good blue-white dreadnought matchups. So like Oath Peluche has a good goblins matchup. Like they're just matchups that can go either way.
That's true, but all I'm saying is that you don't want to play. Like people should play these decks more, and you don't want to play against those. Like if you told me, I'm like, okay. Choose a deck, like if you get to play blue-white dreadnought and then you get to play against elves and goblins all day, I would just be like, well, that sucks. Like that wouldn't be a tournament where I would pick.
I would rather play the Rock.
Exactly. Like you should
straight up. If you told me I'm playing elves and goblins all day, I would play the Rock.
Yeah, and the Rock.
I feel like
the Rock is also good against blue-white dreadnought.
So I would take all day to win, but I'd be like 7-1 at the end of the Swiss.
Yeah,
right?
and that's.
But if you told me I was playing against real decks,
I'll reference. I will reference my paragraph about the Rock. My point is.
No, but I would play the Rock. I would choose the Rock instead of land still if you told me I was playing against elves and goblins all day.
Yeah. So my point is that.
Friends be Mauschwitz. I don't think the Rock should exist. But once that it does,
so the choice.
You look at the matchups. You're like, sometimes it's right to pick it.
So my point is just, I think blue-white dreadnought has a lot of unfavorable matchups amongst top-tier decks, but people don't play top-tier decks because they're busy talking themselves into playing bad decks. So blue-white dreadnought feasts on those. Like, even though I think that the online meta is very competitive, people are still making some questionable choices out there. They're having fun. They're bringing the spice. They're executing on their style. And blue-white dreadnought just farms all that. And people would just like tell me that. They'd just be like, oh, why isn't this deck in your tier list? It's like so good. It beats all this, like somebody was like, oh, move replenish up to tier 1. It beats all these decks. I'm like, it doesn't beat the decks that matter, right? Like it doesn't beat the decks that matter, and I'm concerned about winning the tournament.
Claim that you think replenish is a positive goblins matchup? Did I not beat that out of you?
I mean, since that conversation, I won the PSS. I defeated goblins in. I defeated goblins in the Sacred Torch Showdown. I lost to goblins with Anarchy in the Fall Brawl, and I am. I put it down. I said 5% favorite in my tier list. I said. Great or bad, depending on against goblins, depending on who you ask. I would say 5% favored, but.
I didn't even bring in all the sideboard cards I had because it was too many.
Exactly. I mean, but that's your problem, is that you still need to present threats. So the reason why I didn't put replenish into tier 1 is because the presence of blue-white dreadnought, the fact that Oath Peluche can break serve by having good mana disruption or a good sideboard planned, and like I'm trying to win the tournament, right? It's like I'm not concerned with beating the Rock, even though I lost to the Rock. I'm not concerned with beating.
Those were my pernicious deeds that
I'm not concerned with beating whomever's.
My pernicious deeds beat my City of Traders.
Yeah, there you go.
Who would have thunk?
The $5 against $200 showdown.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, yeah, replenish like farms a bunch of crap, but it doesn't beat blue-white weenie. And it sometimes loses goblins, and it sometimes loses to like Cataclysm and Wasteland, and it sometimes loses itself. Sometimes your Opalescence is in the bottom 20 and you're screwed.
How many beta/foreign BB Savannah lines do you think I own?
0. You were looking them up on TCG.
No, I definitely own more than 0, but I don't think I own 4.
If you have betas, you should definitely sleeve up the blue-white weenie deck.
I probably own at least 1 beta, but I don't know how many total I own. I think I own enough that it's going to be annoying, and I'm going to have to get more. That's the.
Yeah, I mean, but you're going to have like 2.
A beta's like $200, right?
Yeah, well.
It's like something stupid like that.
Good thing you got a job, Michael J. Something that one podcast host doesn't have.
This is some BS. I have plenty of whiteboard.
All right, let's bring it home. Let's bring it home.
I actually was thinking about playing the black-white deck because it looked fun. But there's like good players who are just all playing Oath Peluche decks now.
at all the meetups. There's always at least 2 Oathbluish decks.
Yeah.
And you can't beat them with black-white ever,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Or even like the Thermokarst version would feast on you.
Yeah, Thermokarst smokestack version.
Yeah, so
get them with the stacks. Anyways, I had blue white weenie.
Black white.
Blue white weenie is we skipped need more data. So this tier was called need more data. I had blue white weenie in there. Deck's obviously been putting up numbers, but at least somewhat inconsistent. Flippy has unfortunately bombed out of Italian nationals. Apparently he made some mistakes. Whatever Rich is cooking is my placeholder for a deck that contains Oath of Druids, Shard Phoenix, and Ancestors Chosen. I think that a deck using this package has got to be good.
Growth.
Just have to figure it out. He's not running Stunted Growth. He basically added Zur's Weirding to Landy Hoth and called it a day. In his most recent iteration, I took it for a spin. Deck actually feels pretty good. I might come around to Landy Hoth. I'm thinking I want to play the deck without Armageddons.
But Landy Hoth is real bad against Angry Hermit, which is what Land lost to. I mean, obviously he lost the Dimensional Champion.
No, he lost to Hermit Fab. Yeah.
What did I say?
You said Angry Hermit, which is the next on this list. Need more data on Angry Hermit. Angry Hermit appears to have Angry Hermit has appeared to disappear off the face of the earth for no good reason. Deck's still really good. Probably good against Oathbluish, but I did defeat it.
Do you think that like the Angry Hermit players just became a Hermit Feb over
No.
12 players?
No. I know a few players who have like ran Angry Hermit, and there's just not many archetype devotees. There's just, like, the thing about Hermit Feb is that the guys who play Hermit Feb only play Hermit Feb.
That's their religion.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like they've got Auramancer in their veins.
Yeah, they have slabbed Volrath shapeshifters that they just bring to the table to use as a coaster, even when they're not playing the deck, because they're channeling the power of the shapeshifter. I
mean, Robin seems to have come around to have become like a gap player.
Well, he's just bored. Like he like wants to branch out, and like, you know, he's like, well, I guess I should probably learn how to play more than one deck. But he's always gonna be a Hermit player. And then the rest of them, like same with Mike Harris, he's like, oh, I guess I'll win a meetup with Blue White Dreadnought. But he's gonna bring Angry Hermit to Sacred Torch, right? So win a monthly with Blue White. Anyways, Angry Hermit kind of fell off the face of the earth. There's just not too many people who are like grinding the deck, and if there were people who did, I think they would have good results. Survival Madness is a really sweet deck, but only one guy plays it, and nobody else seems to be able to replicate his results.
He annihilated
Fran,
the last time
on Elves, which is supposed to be a bad matchup.
I mean, spanking. He just cave in now.
Yeah,
I mean, those are the hardest working Squee Goblin nabobs in all of the realm of Dominia.
Every black deck, yeah, go check that out on Fran's YouTube. Every black deck is bad, except for the Rock, which is only sort of bad. Grotog is of course bad, but it won the PSS and it top 8 at Italian Nationals, so whatever. Number one in my heart. Every other deck is trash, or there's just like, nobody plays it. Like Fluctuator isn't trash, right? But nobody plays it, so like whatever.
What about like Blue White Tron? Actually, that's the other deck I was thinking.
Yeah, Blue White Tron. I mean, like I said, nobody plays it. It might be good. It might be bad. People were like, well, what about the Tinker Prison deck? I'm like,
Tinker Prison is just like rolling dice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sweet deck. It's just kind of like, I'm just like, okay, well, nobody's won anything with it, so, whatever. Like, it doesn't feel like, so the basis for my tier list is like, okay, have I played the deck? How strong does it feel? How strong does it feel versus other decks? So I do a lot of focus testing with a lot of the decks that are on this list. Like, I've played a lot of games against Psychotog to know that it's not a good deck. Like, I've played a lot of games of Grotog. I've played, a lot of games of all the first like 10 decks that I've missed, like either for or against, and I qualify a lot of statements. I haven't played a lot of Fluctuator, but I can look out on a sheet of paper and be like, well, Fluctuator is good, but it loses super hard to
Fluctuator. I feel like I lose to decks like Stasis or
I've played against Tinker Prison a lot, and I'm like, well, the deck doesn't really impress me. And then it's like, if you're like, oh, what about Mono Brown Mud? I'm just like, well, if I haven't seen the deck or played against the deck, and I haven't seen the deck in any top result, then it probably doesn't belong on my tier list. So go win a tournament, and then I'll go put it in the needs more data column. The Ill-Gotten Gains deck that got top 16 at one of the other European nationals was super cool. It's a Lion's Eye Diamond deck. I played against it online. Nifty deck, probably 2 glass cannon-y. So all the other decks are tier 5. And them's the breaks. Let's bring it home, wrap it up. What do you think about Premodern and my tier list, Mike? And let's call it a day.
I think your tier list is poop. It doesn't have a lot of the decks that I like. I don't see Red White Rifter on this tier list. Obviously one of the best decks, which I played profusely in all of my Premodern playing. You didn't really. I think you didn't give full shrift to mono green Oath Peluche, which I think is like a real deck. I think it is. In fact, a real deck. It's not the difference between blue white Dreadnought and mono blue Dreadnought, right? It is a deck with its own identity that does its own thing. Among other things, it spanks the bejesus out of green white Oath.
Yeah, but it's worse against goblins, elves, and Dreadnought, which is like the most important place to have
it's
points.
Still good against Dreadnought, and it's pretty good against elves.
I mean,
I agree that goblins is a much worse.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't like its Dreadnought matchup, but you know, we'll leave it to.
I mean, scoreboard, that deck is just consistently does well, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, but not, you know, not compared to Dave Kaplan, my friend.
Yeah, there's only Dave Kaplan. Kaplan is the Eye of Sauron.
You can find this tier list on my Twitter. You can find it on Discord in the content tab. You can find it on Premodern for Non-Idiots.
I was actually a little hurt that you put it in the regular Premodern list as well as Premodern for Non-Idiots.
Premodern for Non-Idiots needs to grow. My focus is eyeballs, right? You know, our eventual monetization of the Spike Colony content depends on our reach. So.
Yeah, we already reached the entire Premodern community. It's only so big. just to point that out.
Apparently, it's huge if you can host a nationals in a different European country every weekend for the entirety of fall and winter. Like every weekend. So. Danish, Dutch, Lithuanian, Polish, Czech, same thing as I don't know. German was the big Euros. UK? Come on, France, let's go. Like. What am I missing? There should be a Turkish Premodern nationals. Japan, let's get in the mix. What's up?
What are you playing on Tuesday, as you know that this is going to affect my deck choice?
If I show up on Tuesday, I'm going to play Replenish.
Oh, really?
I'm either going to play Replenish or I'm gonna see what's in the box and put together a Shard Phoenix chosen deck.
I really wanted to play Blue White Tron because I've never been so excited as watching like Fran with like these giant Decree of Justices, giant Stroke of Geniuses, which I think is probably okay against if you play Replenish. Probably not great, but it's probably okay. And then I also like Mono Blue Dreadnought, but
Mishra's Factory. Let's go.
If you're playing Replenish, you're going to beat me up, I think.
You can
Mono Blue Dreadnought beat? It must be able to beat Replenish.
It never has in my experience, but maybe you can. I guess
you go 4 plow, 4 bands after sideboarding. 4. I'm just dead, right?
Yeah, 4 plow, 4 bands, 3 seal cleansing, mana short, counterspell. In addition to the fact that my deck runs Parallax Wave, I don't know, and Replenish. Obviously, like my deck kills you or stops you from killing me, and it kills you on site, right? So it's like Wave Opalescence is checkmark for what it, it's not good. It's not good. You need the Meddling Mages and you can go Brain Freeze plan, maybe.
I don't know how many Flash of Insights I own, actually.
Yeah, just replace them with Deep Analysis.
The Fall Brawl. No, man, they're completely different cards.
I know.
An instant.
I know. Okay, that is Spike Colony 22.
Deep Analysis is just different.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I am feeling 22. Thank you all for listening.
Came in at a lean 2 hours and 15 minutes this week.
I've been greatly enjoying all the feedback on our podcast. I've been greatly enjoying all.
Where do you get this feedback? Where does that come from?
People message me and they're just like, "Oh, you do such a good job reining in Michael J. He hasn't responded to my message on Facebook because he hasn't accepted my friend request. I tried to reach out to him on Discord and he didn't look at it. I have nice things to say about him. Tried to tag him on Twitter, but he blocked me because he thinks I'm an idiot. Love your stuff. Keep going, and tell Michael J that I love him too. And thanks for all the kind words. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm mostly responding to, like, I don't know, some people just loved our 3-hour episodes. I was just like, dang, like that's crazy. But no, shout out to whoever ends up winning Italian Nationals, you know that I'm rooting for Grow Talk. Shout out to Mike Hoyp. The Fall Brawl was an incredible production. Be sure to check that out on Cloud Go Ranger on Twitch and Cloud Go Ranger on YouTube.
That top 4 commentary was really just
shout out to whoever
fabulous.
Commentated those matches.
Incisive, ingenious, observational.
The quarterfinal commentary is pretty good too. If
I don't know anything
me.
about the quarterfinal commentary, but the semifinal commentary, my God. Better.
And yeah, my shout out is just like the discourse. Like, I love discussing this stuff. I was actually really happy to have a lot of action on my tier list post, and it's good to get the juices flowing, and a lot of interesting stuff came of that. People messaging me is like, oh, maybe I'll try Worldly Tutor in green white or whatever, or just like, oh, what do you think about this deck? And somebody was like, oh, you should put Stasis on there, and I'm just like, Stasis is fine. So anyways, love Spike Colony.
Bye. Love Mike.
Game over.